will be downed inside the 10. Excellent coverage on the punt for the Bulldogs. And then did Austin scoop it up on the return? Calvin Austin will take it all the way the other way.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Dug in, throws it, end zone touchdown. Quentin Johnston caps the drive with an 18-yard touchdown catch, and TCU takes its first lead.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
First and goal. He's found 5 different targets. He's going to hand it off. It's Pollard, and he's across for the Dallas touchdown.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
First and goal for the Bears. Smith straight into the end zone. Touchdown, Baylor.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Tuesday afternoon. Charlie Brewer no longer a part of the Utah football program. We'll have Jake Hatch, Locked on Utes. He also is a part of a radio station group that covers all sorts of everything Utah. His thoughts at 3:25. We'll focus in on the TCU side of TCU SMU today with Drew Davison, CBS Sports columnist, college football writer Barrett Sallee at 4, Mac Rhodes, Baylor AD at 4:20. Craig's off the radar. Paul's top 5 in between that. Memphis, ESPN Radio's John Martin and John McClain, Hall of Fame writer, Houston Chronicle. So I had somebody send me a piece of the depth chart, or a video of I guess, a picture of the depth chart at Utah. Cam Rising, Quindon Jackson, who is, of course, Jaquindon Jackson, who was at Duncanville and then went to Texas, and now at Utah. And the first thing I thought about is Charlie Brewer's not even on the depth chart. And then come to find out, he has left the program. If he left because he was benched or also because he's no longer the starter, that's not the best look. But at the same time, we will try to track down, trying to work my angles of it if I can. But he was benched on Saturday night, and it hasn't gone well. And so Utah moves on, like Baylor's moved on with Gary Bohannon. And I guess, Paul, and I don't know if this means he still wants to play football. He still gets the red shirt because he's played a lot of football. We know the story about Charlie. But if he left because he's no longer the starter, I don't like that look, but I will always defend Charlie Brewer for the most part.
Well, I mentioned it yesterday. Craig mentioned the term bump card from wrestling. I think that everybody has a certain amount of hits in their body, and one of Charlie's last ones was that hit against Oklahoma in the 2019. He's not been the same since that hit in the 2019 Big 12 championship game. Everybody has that limit. I think he's past his limit. He's not a big guy, and he was not only hit, that was a big hit that changed him, because if you watch the way he just moved around at Georgia, he wasn't the same. And then last year he got nothing but punished behind a very bad offensive line a year ago. So I just didn't know how much he had left when he went to Utah, and this is not all that surprising to me, just based on how physically he must have been to me. And that's just my observation. I'm not a doctor. I didn't talk to anybody. That's just how it looked to me. Like, man, this guy's just taking too many hits.
Yeah, I mean, he took a lot of shots. And, at the same time, if there was a concern there, then, Utah's medical staff still cleared him to come play football there and start 3 games for them. So, I've heard all the stuff about hits and concussions and all of that. Would it surprise me in any way if he's had some of those? Absolutely not. I mean, we've all seen the hits that he's taken. But, at the same time, if it's that much of a concern, then I'm wondering how college staffs are clearing him to play.
I didn't think it was concussions. I think it was just your overall, just
damaged. And I totally get that. I have a hard time when I see people start getting uber specific, and I'm not talking about you, Paul. I'm saying in general, I've already seen multiple people it's this, and it's the concussions are adding up, and it's like, well, maybe it's just his whole body hurts. Maybe he's just maxed out what he can do. Like, that's the thing is I think he maxed out what he could physically do. I mean, his arm's not going to get any stronger. He's not going to be able to run any better. His pocket presence isn't going to grow at this point. Like, he's who he is. And so we saw last year that Baylor's offense was a combination of problems. And as much as the O-line was the biggest issue, Charlie was also an issue. He was not very good last year. And, he also wasn't getting a whole lot of help either. Nobody on offense was good last year. Not even the running backs who are starring right now were very good last year. So I hate it for him. I do wonder if we're going to hear, that it was hey, I can't take any more shots, or I can't do this anymore. The grind's too much. I'm going to go coach, or I'm going to go be a lawyer, or whatever he's going to do. I await what he has to say and what his reasoning is, because on the flip side, if he just up and left because Cam Rising's now the starting quarterback, it's a bad look for Charlie Brewer. And it's the exact opposite of what college football should be heading towards. The transfer portal provides all these opportunities, but it's not there so that once you get benched, you just jump in the transfer portal to go get a starting job somewhere else. So that's why I'm curious to know the real reasoning behind his decision. Is it something of like, I just can't do this anymore? Or is it, you know what, I'm taking my ball and going home?
No, that's true. And that's exactly right. And so what I did, I reached out to Charlie. I reached out to Charlie's father, Robert, who I have a good relationship with both of them, and also others. Haven't heard anything, and probably it's kind of what's going on right now. Who knows what Robert Brewer actually knows about Charlie's decision to leave the team. But I'm not going to make any kind. All I know is that if he doesn't play again, I'm okay with that. If he goes and tries to play somewhere else, he better, and they need to make sure that that's exactly what he wants to do, whatever level that might be, and whether it's a Power 5 team, which might not be available, I don't know. But if he left because he was benched and then now second team, I don't like that. He's too good to do that. But at the same time, maybe he's just done.
Well, there was another quarterback retirement today. Well, I don't know what Charlie's is, but there was another quarterback news today. It was Bailey Hockman, who was at FSU and then NC State and then Middle Tennessee. He left the program because he's done with football. And, I wouldn't be surprised if Charlie's done. I just wouldn't be surprised because and not that he's leaving his team, but if they told him, look, Cameron Rising is our quarterback the rest of this year, Jaquindon Jackson is a guy we want to get ready for the future. We need your reps to step back. And he's thinking, well, if I'm not going to play, do I need to put myself through all this? I'll just go and get out of the way.
Yeah, and I saw, and I don't know if this is connected at all, but, in light of today's news, you can kind of put two and two together, I guess. But there was a Utah player whose name escapes me who was talking about, just things in general. It was a clip, so it wasn't like there was a lot of, the question included in all of that. But he was talking about how Cam Rising has been the same guy throughout, that even when he wasn't the starter, he was still a guy creating a lot of energy on the sidelines and being vocal. And then once his number was called, like, hey, rip-roaring and ready to go. And I think we all know Charlie well enough to know that if he's not playing, he's probably not pumping you up on the sideline. He's not being very vocal. And, in fact, you might take it as pouting. I mean, just him walking around normally can look like pouting sometimes. So I don't know if that player was directly referencing Charlie, but it was said in a very positive light regarding Cam Rising. So I think Utah's probably got who they need to have back there. I think that showed toward the end of the game. I hate it for Charlie, especially because that first game was a good performance for him, and there were a lot of people at Utah or Utah fans that I saw that were like, hey, we finally got a guy. Like, we finally got our guy. And I remember thinking, well, let's see what, once the competition raises up a little bit. And sure enough, their offensive line can't block very well, and he's taking more hits, and then everything unravels from there. So I hate it for him. I'm not surprised, though, in the slightest that, he's been benched for Cam Rising. I am surprised that he's left the team, but wait for more word on exactly why that is.
Well, and it's actually trended on Twitter because obviously he was, for a couple of years, 2017 was a bad year all around with Baylor, and he was a part of that 1-11. They don't go to a bowl game without him in 2018. Matt Rule made that very clear. Jeff Nixon's made that clear, among others. And 19 was a great team with defense, a complementary offense of which Charlie was a part of it. And then, of course, eventually that kind of was able to wind down a little bit as well. And then that's when you had the Jacob Zeno appearance against Oklahoma. Charlie tried to play in the game against Georgia. He did, and he got slammed on the sideline on a tackle, and then he didn't play. So I don't know. I'm going to wait till I hear from him or maybe his father, if they talk to me. I don't know if they will. Before I find out exactly, we will have Jake Hatch, who covers Utah sports in a lot of ways. He'll join us in here in about 10 minutes or so to give us his. He is not, as of right now, in the transfer portal. That doesn't mean he can't be or won't be or maybe not by the end of the night. But I do know, at least for right now, not in the transfer portal.
I'll say this about Charlie. I mean, Baylor football probably doesn't have Dave Aranda as head coach if Charlie Brewer's not a Baylor quarterback the last few years. They definitely don't get into a Big 12 championship game against Oklahoma. They definitely are not probably as far along now as they may have eventually overcame, the setback of the scandal and all of that, but Charlie played a huge role in them doing so. Even though it wasn't always him, it was a lot of others, and a lot of times it was the defense. Charlie, brought them from behind so many different times and was a great player. My frustration with him was always like, why can't we see this for 4 quarters? Like, why is it always with 5 minutes left in the game, all of a sudden you turn into freaking Tom Brady? Where is that all the time? But, had to be a tough decision for him, I would imagine. And like I said, I'm sure we'll hear more. I'm not shocked he's been benched. I am shocked that he's leaving. But if it turns out that he's just calling it quits, then I think we'd all be very understanding of that.
Diane, listening to you guys from Phoenix this week, appreciate the measured discussion. R.E. Charlie, I hope he's assessing what's next rather than where next. That's from Diane. Tim also is talking about Charlie Brewer. Tom Brady would not have had any good looks behind that offensive line a year ago. There were no holes for running backs to run through. It was a real-life bad news Bears when they were on offense. Anyone who tries to blame Charlie for last year's ineptitude is wrong. Across the board, they were bad. That's from also from Tim. We appreciate that.
Grayson and I got a question today in the podcast about, Gary Bohannon and the fact that he didn't see a lot of time last year, and I forget the phrasing of the question, but good.
Yeah.
Thank God he didn't see time in this offense last year.
That's like, hey, why don't you go walk into that dungeon of snakes, and then you get bitten by 30 or 40 of them. Then you go, hey, you want to go back in there again? It might have been Dave Aranda might have sacrificed, and I'm not saying this, sacrificed or what was best for Gary and Jacob and others by not playing them a year ago. Charlie eventually in the last game against Oklahoma State was done. And then that's when Jacob came in and got a few snaps.
Okay. Dave Aranda might have, and Charlie might have as well. Charlie was part of that. Charlie didn't want to sit down.
No.
So he knew. And then, look, if you're Baylor, you kind of maybe lucked out in that in the worst possible season you could have with offensive linemen and COVID and all that stuff, that you had a guy willing to stand back there and get pummeled and pummeled and pummeled and come back until that last week. That was a big thing because you could have broken Bohannon and Zeno permanently. There are quarterbacks who see ghosts. I always think about how talented I thought David Carr was. And the Texans just threw him out there behind a really bad offensive line, and you'd watch him, they're like, man, what was that about? And it's because he saw ghosts.
It's interesting you bring that up because Sam Darnold had said that when he was with the Jets, and Matt Rule and Carolina now have him. And Troy Aikman, I was told this yesterday, and I'll ask this if we ever get Coach Rule on. They have a Thursday game this week. They're 2-0. Did Troy Aikman tell him? I think Troy Aikman may have given Rule a little advice on the ghost part of it. That hey, there's more people that see those than maybe admit it. So that might also be why they also went after Sam Darnold, who of course has played well so far for them. Let's go to a couple of calls. Jake Hatch will join us. We are loaded up today on many things college football. By the way, congratulations to Tanner Mordecai again. Second time in 3 weeks, named the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award winner after his performance against Louisiana Tech and the Hail Mary to win that game as well.
All right, Eric in Colorado Springs, you are on Sikkim 365 Radio on the BetUS caller line. Thanks for your call.
Yeah, I think that the Big 12 has a really good opportunity to become one of the premier leagues or conferences in the country by expanding to 16 teams.
Who do you think? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different things that people could say that's good or that's bad. But if they were to bring in UAB, Memphis, Utah, and I forgot what the other one was that I came up with. Boise State. If you were to bring in 4 teams, you could have 4 divisions of 4, and then you would have each division play a home and away against its own division rivals. Then you could reseed the number 1, the number 2, the number 3, and the number 4 seeds into their own 4 pools and have a home and away series there, and then have the champions of each of those 4 pools playoff for the conference championship.
All right. That's kind of complicated. I think we ought to see what they do by getting to 12, but we appreciate the call.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of pods and crossovers and all that's an interesting idea. You know, I do think the Big 12 is remaining on the hunt. They're obviously in no hurry now. They've settled down. The whole realignment talk has settled down somewhat because the season has taken precedent. So I think everybody's kind of put that to the side, although you can imagine the conversations are still continuing on. You know, the teams that you mentioned for the most part, I think are teams that the Big 12 has probably looked at and talked to. I don't know about UAB. Not sure at all about them. Haven't heard really anything there. But, you know, certainly there's a lot of – I'll say this. There's a lot of options on the table. You know, whether they're at 12, whether they're at 16. 16 does seem like it would be a nice round number, and you wouldn't have to worry about expansion for a while. Even if teams left, you'd still have a safeguard to where you remain healthy above the threshold. But, yeah, I wonder what their cutoff is going to be, because I don't know if they you know, go back to the table and decide to announce is it going to be another 4, or is it going to be a little bit more exclusive and maybe just a couple of teams? Like, what is the end goal? And that's one thing we don't know, because if they wanted to, they could add 20 teams, you know, and just be one monster league, but that wouldn't make any sense. So, yeah, I don't know what they're eyeing, but I am curious to know. Is this going to be a 14, a 16? What type of a league is it going to be? But it's good that they have options, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm curious about pods and leagues. I'd like to see.
I am too, but we don't have any details yet. Yeah. You know, we don't know when Texas and Oklahoma are leaving still. So, like, until we know that, you can't even set the schedule for 3 years from now, because they might be in it, they might not be in it. You know, if they're in it, but then there's 4 new teams that are in it, or 3 teams that are in it. Because BYU would be a year later, right? Or one of them
before, yeah.
Or a year before. So, like, yeah, there's so much staggering of the numbers that until we know Texas and Oklahoma's plans, quite frankly, you know, you can't really set a schedule.
Well, if Texas and Oklahoma are going to leave in 2025, BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, you know, some of those teams are going to have to play. We're going to have to play Texas and Oklahoma, and they don't even know it yet.
I had a text about that I think it may have been last night, or no, it was Sunday night. I didn't get a chance to read it, about what happens if, in fact, somebody leaves and the others aren't there yet. Well, they'll have to work that out, and that would mean most likely that's why I think you're going to see Texas and Oklahoma stay for 2 years. I think that they will stay through 21 and 22. And then that gives you a chance before the 23 season for them to leave and others to join. And it's kind of not seamless, but it's a lot easier done that way. And there might be some give and take with that as well.
That's why I also think you'll see the 2020 or the 2026 season be the first one, maybe 2027, of the 12-team playoff, because it gives everybody a couple years to
let the dust settle.
Let the dust settle.
Yeah.
TV deals to be worked out from all the conferences, and here's what's going to go on. And then the other thing is, if you hear somebody saying right now, like, I don't know how I feel about the 12-team playoff, blah, 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 they are lying to you. It's going to happen. It's posturing so that whoever their special interest is, or their school or whatever conference, has the best position in it. So.
And one final thing on his call, you mentioned Utah, and, you know, barring some deal with the Pac-12 to where they see some type of an exodus. I mean, nobody's leaving a Power 5, or excuse me, an A5 conference to go join another one. And I know that Texas and Oklahoma just did that, but that was a particular case of moving to the SEC and being 2 blue bloods. I think for anybody else, there's not maybe a whole lot of motivation outside of the scenario that I presented over the last couple of weeks and have discussed of, you know, eventually as these contracts grow closer, and maybe some of the political ideology, or maybe just some of the process and the thought behind what college football is going to look like doesn't fit the thought process of what maybe the president of Missouri thinks it's going to be. And therefore, maybe you could see some friction created to where maybe some other teams go, yeah, the pasture we're in right now is pretty green, but that's a better shade of green for us over on that other side. And so maybe a Utah could leave a Pac-12 eventually, but right now they're locked in with the rest of the schools. That would be near the top of my list for Big 12 candidates, so along with Colorado and the Arizona schools.
By the way, somebody in the chat room, that's it on YouTube 365 Sports, mentioned last year's player at Utah. I wish I could find this. South Carolina's former 3-year starting quarterback Jake Bentley also transferred to Utah, didn't play well. He is now starting for South Alabama, doing well, so going down a level may help. And again, it depends on where you are. You want to play college football. I'll never keep somebody from wanting to do it if they want to do it, whatever level it might be.
Yeah, final thing on Charlie, unless somebody else mentions him, but, he was an SMU commit to begin with. And if it had not been for Matt Rule coming in and taking over that job and needing to fill out a recruiting class that at that point featured one player at the start of December, one player. That's Jalen Petrie, who's now an All-American candidate. So a great story there. But outside of that, they had to create an entire recruiting class in about 8 weeks, right? And one of the big gets, I still remember when Charlie's tweet popped up saying that he was decommitting from SMU and coming to Baylor. And I think he proved at Baylor that, when things are going well, he can play at the Big 12 level. But I do think that maybe SMU or the likes are probably a better fit for him at this point, and probably a better fit for his overall talent level. Like I said, he can play in the Big 12. He proved that. But, week in and week out, his skill set probably is more suited to, maybe a little bit of a step down, at least to close out his career, a la Jake Bentley.
All right, Paul, the call, they drop off?
No, one more. Steven in Virginia, thanks for your call. You're on the Bet US caller line.
Hey, Craig, I wanted to bring up Charlie Brewer. First, I want to say if Charlie doesn't want to play anymore, that I'm completely behind him. And, like y'all said, I think that he took a few more hits during that 2019 season, and there were a couple other games where he struggled. And, that Oklahoma one kind of did the job, like Paul said. And I think he probably isn't injured, but I think it might not be as fun to get hit anymore. I saw that interception that got him pulled, and that was a play I felt like I had seen before. But I want to say that if Charlie wants to keep playing and he transferred because he wants to go somewhere else, I don't want to say anything negative about him because I feel like Charlie was robbed in a certain way. Charlie was a high school football legend at the time he, committed, and he came to Baylor and turned the thing around. And due to a very complex situation with a new coach and where Charlie, John Lovett, others were single digits, and it was a brand new coach. It was COVID. I mean, guys lost single digits. All kinds of things happened last year, and I just don't think you were going to pull Charlie. And I think a lot of people had a hard time understanding that and really gave him a hard time. And Charlie should be the kind of guy that you would mention in a high school football Hall of Fame kind of sense for the way he played. And if Charlie wants to step down and play at UTEP or UTSA or Rice or somewhere in the state of Texas where he can play much better than the guy did before him and he can close out and he can have a campus that he can go to games on Saturday when he graduates and not feel like people are going to throw stuff at him. Charlie deserves that because even though his play last year certainly could be critiqued and fair criticism was warranted, Charlie deserves to be a legend in whatever program he plays at. And I can't blame him for saying, knowing Charlie to say that, I don't want to sit here and tutor Cam Rising and hope he gets hurt and I get my chance for my last year of college football. And I'd just like to hear what y'all have to say about that. So later, guys.
Thanks.
All right, thanks for your time. I do think that until you hear exactly from him, and we may never, I got a feeling that might happen, but to know, I don't, if you're benched, and then the depth chart says you're no longer the starter and then leaving, I want to know why. And if it's just because you're pissed or you're frustrated, okay, but say that. If it's because you want to take your toys and go home, say it. If you're because you want to maybe just do something else or look at other options, that's fine too. He won't be the first quarterback to end up at 3 or 4 different schools if he goes somewhere else.
No, he's no Tate Martell. He's actually proven something at the college football level without transferring multiple schools and still doing nothing at every spot. But, he's far from the first guy to enter his name in the transfer portal this year. I mean, just in general in college football, I just saw a guy, and I can't remember the school now. I think it was Clemson. One of their backup running backs just entered the transfer portal.
I saw that,
yesterday. So it's happening all over. This is just high profile, obviously, because he did make a little bit of a name for himself, and there were people that thought he was going to make a difference for Utah. And as of the first game, he had. But as of the last couple, obviously not. And I'm totally with you on the, Charlie Brewer and getting his roses wherever he goes. I hope that still happens in Waco. I mean, the dude played here for 4 years, played for a Big 12 title, had his bumps and bruises and God knows what else, but also had some terrific moments as well. And, he's just a different cat, man. Like, I'm a different cat, but he's like on a totally different type of level than even me. I don't even understand him. You know what I mean? It's like he's a hard puzzle to figure out, but I hope that there's no love lost there. I hope that, one day when they're commemorating like the 2018 or 2019 team or something like that, like I'm sure they'll do a Jalen Petrie in the future, that he's also included in that because he deserves to be. He's a starting damn quarterback for 3.5 years, and they wouldn't have been anywhere close to where they were without him in terms of the successes, and the losses would have been that much worse. So, I hope he gets his roses wherever that may be, but it definitely still needs to happen in Waco no matter where his career ends. And I do think, to your point, the fans and the toxicity that revolved around him, I hated that. I hated how nasty that got and how much blame was placed on his shoulders. Even if there was room for some blame to be put on his shoulders, he was made out to be the scapegoat, even though there was other clear issues. And I don't know why people harped on that so much, but it got really just like nasty. And I didn't appreciate that. I can only imagine how he felt. So that's unfortunate.
It's easy to blame one person when there's, because you couldn't wrap your head around. Well, it's clearly because he's got fast guys all around him. He can get the ball to the fast guys. Why isn't he getting the ball to the fast guys? Come on, they're fast. Give them the ball. They're fast. Well, fast is only one thing you need. And maybe they weren't doing their job. It's really easy to pick on the quarterback. He's the whole problem.
Well, he also gets a lot of the attention when they're winning too.
Exactly.
He got a lot too.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm a huge Charlie fan, but I don't know until I want to get some more. But he's gone. He's out of Utah. We'll see what his next step might be. Coming up next, Jake Hatch. He's been with us before on Brigham Young, on Utah, on Charlie Brewer, on the Utah Jazz, on many things. He's next on Sikkim 365 Radio. What's being said in Salt Lake City and also around that area on this story that is actually trending on Twitter and on our show. This is Sikkim 365 Radio. If you like to smoke cigars, and on occasion I do, especially if I'm playing golf, which I don't get to do at all when it's football season, or on occasion if I want to try to smoke a cigar when I'm just having maybe a drink and cooking a steak on the grill, Don Humidor and Coffee Beans is where I go for my cigars. Ashton, Camacho, Cohiba, Rocky Patel, Christoph, Macanudo, my father, and along with Padron, Oliva, and even one of the nicest ones, Romeo and Julieta. There's the Punch cigar as well, which has got a different type of a skinnier feeling on the end. It is Don Humidor and Coffee Beans. Now, those cigars, 48-foot walk-in humidor loaded with boxes, dozens, hundreds of cigars of all of what I just mentioned and even more, like Java by Drew Estate. And then on top of that, they have CBD, which is, if you want, that's available as well. And that is for many things, including pain or soreness, or maybe trying to go to sleep a little bit easier and longer and saving yourself 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour or more from tossing and turning with Vitadreams. And then there's Coffee Beans, which they grind right there in front of you. One of the more favorite, names or the brands or flavors is Cowboy. And that's available. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans. Tell Carol, Ashley, and Cheyenne Smokey sent you in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
The 2021 Ram brand just received first place in the prestigious J.D. Power's Initial Quality Study. The Dodge brand finished second to Ram, and the 2021 Jeep Gladiator is first among all midsize trucks. Quality and Ram Power Days, only at Allen Samuels, 201 West Loop 340.
Come by, let's be friends.
It's football season. Sports bettors and BetUS.com has your NFL and college football live betting lines up for their 27th year. Why BetUS.com? Well, they're the 3-decade leader, and you can join now for a 125% bonus on promo code SICKM125 with cash, or a 200% bonus on crypto with SICKM200. The 3-decade leader with action on every sport across the world. We can pretty much guarantee that they've got your game at BetUS.com. Use promo code SICKM125 or SICKM200.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm, welcome home.
For a limited time, refinance your vehicle and have 90 days with 0 payments. Only at Genco FCU. Refinancing lowers your rate and you pay less for your car. You can't pass on rates as low as 1.75% for 48 months. Apply online today.
Annual percentage rate subject to change without notice. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. Go to GencoFCU.org. NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio with socially distanced seating for your enjoyment. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfect pizza. Bob Mock has owned Marco's Pizza franchises since 2013 and has been delivering pizza since 2001 and is the proud owner of 4 locations in the Waco area, in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to be open in Robinson. Order at marcos.com to make any moment better. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Call us on the Bet US hotline, 254-339-1122.
All right, here we go. 3:32. We spent quite a bit the first part of this show on the news that came down just really a couple of hours ago with Utah head coach Kyle Whittingham saying that saying that Charlie Brewer was no longer a part of the Utah program. The depth chart came out. Cam Rising, the starter, took over and almost brought him back in the game over the weekend. Jake Hatch covers everything Utah with us. Locked on Utes, locked on everything, including Utah sports. Joins us 365 Radio. Jake, you and I have talked a couple of times, traded some text messages back and forth. Did this surprise some people when this news came out?
A stunning development, honestly, up here. I've talked to multiple people who said they had no indication this was going to happen. So, yeah, really a surprise.
Have you gotten any indication he's intending to look at the transfer portal, or is he just done?
That is still to be determined. I have people who've been checking the transfer portal periodically to see if his name pops up. Obviously, there's a 48-hour window that the schools are required to put that name in the portal should the athlete request it. So that could be as soon as this afternoon, or it could be as late as 2 days from now. We'll keep an eye on that. But I do not know at this time what his plan is.
Did Coach Whittingham get into any particular, I know he didn't reveal the details behind why Charlie left or anything like that. That's why we're all speculating. But what were his comments? I only saw one quote, but didn't know if there was more to it than just that.
No, that's it. The statement said Charlie's had to leave the program and we wish him well. That's the only statement we have gotten so far today. They will have media availability later tonight, and the hope is at that point Kyle Whittingham will speak to the media briefly and hopefully give some more particulars and details then.
Jake, we know what Charlie did at Baylor. We also know last year wasn't easy at all. But at the same time, there was never a question from at least who I talked to, coaches, players, those around the program, that anyone ever had a bad thing to say about him. There's always whispers about this and that. And then obviously last year went south. Craig brought this up. Was Charlie liked inside the locker room at Utah? Was he kind of got there, took over the job? I know there's competition. What was the overall feel inside that locker room?
Based on what I understood and in my brief interactions with him, I always enjoyed talking with him. But the people that I know that know this program better than I do say that he was pretty well liked. He came in, was willing to learn, really kind of integrated himself with his teammates, did a lot of the what you call player run practices during the summer to get himself associated with his receivers and all that stuff. So I don't see anything on the surface to me that indicates that he had a bad relationship that might have preempted all of this. It's just a really, really weird development, if I'm being honest.
So, obviously, we could discuss Cam Rising. We know where he came from, and obviously a very highly touted quarterback. He did give him a spark Saturday. I mean, he came in and almost brought them back. Why did Brewer win the job in the spring and not Rising?
Okay, this is completely my take on what the quarterback situation was with Utah, is that they thought that Cam Rising, coming off shoulder surgery, was probably going to be slow to get back to 100%. And they were bringing a guy like Charlie Brewer in as an insurance policy to maybe make him a one-year stopgap, if you will, while Cam Rising got back to full health. Cam Rising recovered a lot quicker than I believe anybody truly anticipated him recovering. His performance during fall camp really, I think, opened eyes and made the coaches really reconsider what they were doing. But I really feel like they felt like, okay, we promised Charlie Brewer he was going to be the guy. We're going to go with him here and see what he can do. And things did not go well, obviously, through the 3 games that he was the starter for. And as you mentioned, Cam Rising came in last week and nearly rallied them to a victory. And from that point on, I don't think the coaching staff could, in their minds, justify going back to Charlie Brewer. And I feel like he probably was just not content to be a backup at this point in his playing career.
Anything else? Jake, I know you got plenty to do, man. Appreciate your time dropping in with us. When you and I talked earlier, you said this was kind of out of nowhere. I don't know the complete story, and you're working on it as well. Thanks for your time. We'll stay in touch the rest of the day.
No problem. Thanks for having me as always, guys.
Yeah, Jake Hatch, the Zone Sports Network, covers Brigham Young, covers Utah, covers everything Utah. Has been on with us quite a bit during the realignment or expansion talk, and also even when Charlie transferred to Utah and after spring when he won that job as well. You know, one of the things I think about him, remember the run he made? Was it the overtime win, the 4 overtime win against TCU near the goal line where he ran over? How many times did he, as a diminutive-type quarterback, somehow find a way to score in some of those crowded goal line quarterback keepers, which didn't always work out?
He was a tough little booger, didn't he? I mean, he was. I mean, he was not afraid of anything. He would go head first into things, maybe to his detriment sometimes, but still, he was tough. He was a tough player.
The throw to Denzel Mims to beat Oklahoma State, the bowl game against Vanderbilt when he was, I thought, spectacular. A lot of things. There was also the down moments, like last year against Texas Tech. Wasn't there the running into the end zone and he didn't see a linebacker and somebody almost killed him? That was a huge moment in that game. I'll say this. Baylor is in better shape because of who they have right now. Gary Bohannon is their starting quarterback, but Charlie Brewer gave them 4 years, 3 special years with what he did, even though the first one was at 1-11.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what reasoning is. I mean, that's the thing that I'm most curious about. Like I said earlier, if it turns out that he's just physically done and he wants to retire from football or do whatever his next step in life is, I think everybody will go, okay, never mind. You know, I think the people that are quick to say, he's a poor sport or he's taking his ball and going home or whatever, I don't think any of us know what he's been through, and maybe it's not as simple as, I got beat out, now I'm not going to play anymore. If it is that, then obviously that says something else entirely, and everybody will, have every reason to make a comment like that. But yeah, it's just a mystery right now. I don't think it's a mystery that's going to, probably last too long.
Yeah.
Because I think he does have to say something at some point, just because if he does want to continue to play, then that needs to be made known. And if he doesn't want to continue to play, even though, I don't think he's an attention seeker, I think you still got to probably put that out there just to put rumors to bed and, let it be known what your next step in life is. So I look forward to hearing that whenever that comes, or if it's from him or if it's from the family or whatever. But, yeah, bizarre timing, and hate it for Utah, hate it for Charlie. But Cam Rising looked really good on Saturday night, nearly won that game for them. And I would be excited about that if I was a Utes fan right now. I was like, yeah, we lost this guy, but this other guy looks better. And our team looks better with him, and you just hope that carries over, and that wasn't just they made a quarterback switch and then emotions flipped, and, it's like that spark that you get for that night. Does it carry over for Utah? That's what's going to be curious to see.
From the 979, Charlie deciding to leave Utah is smart for him since he never used his red shirt at Baylor, and the new 4-game redshirt rule, he can declare this year a redshirt year, transfer with instant eligibility for his 6th year. That's for the 979.
That's something that we have not brought up, but it's absolutely true that there is the timing of it. I mentioned there's been others that have put their name in the portal, and a lot of that has to do with, hey, you're maintaining a year of eligibility. And so I would not be surprised at all, and that's a very good point, that could be the motivation behind this is like, hey, I know my future is not going to work out here for the rest. Like, I'm not getting my job back unless Cam Rising gets hurt. Or unless he just plays awful, which Charlie's probably seen enough to know that's probably not going to be the case. Probably had a hard time beating him out to begin with. So if he does think, oh, I've got more football left to play, but it's clearly not going to be here, his only option is to go into the transfer portal and save this year somehow. But we'll see.
It didn't work out. I'll never forget when I saw him playing golf during the summer before last year, which of course ended up being toast, and how excited he was to be a part of what could be the Larry Fedora offense, which we know was a complete disaster.
Yeah, well, I was really excited to see the first Suicide Squad movie, but then when it came on,
but I remember, he was, and then it just didn't work. It did not work, and across the board did not work. Everybody took bullets. It did not work, and right now, Dave Aranda, Jeff Grimes, Eric Mateo, Sean Bell, Chancey Stuckey and that offense are rolling, and now we find out a little bit more when they play Iowa State Saturday at home
at 2:30. Find out a lot more.
A hell of a lot
Saturday
more.
at 2:30.
I mean, if they're successful and they go, I'm not saying the kind of yardage, but they're successful and they can play with Iowa State, beat Iowa State, score against Iowa State, that's going to say even more. But so far, it's night and day because they never looked like this at all, even in the win against Kansas a year ago.
If they go toe-to-toe with Iowa State, and not even if they win that game, they're going to put some people on notice. They're like, oh, wait a second, we probably need to pay attention to them because they have their ducks in a row right now. It's just the only thing missing is proving that they can do it against a much better opponent.
All right, yeah, because most of the teams you look at in the Big 12 have at least played somebody that can test them. That can, like, even the loss by Texas to Arkansas on the road in Fayetteville. Also, even Oklahoma State at Boise, Iowa beating Iowa State. So there's been, and even Houston and Texas Tech, they've played somebody at a level that, it could be at least you better play pretty well. When we come back, Drew Davison covers TCU. They've got a game with SMU. There's some sparks flying between these two. They don't like each other. SMU's pretty good. TCU's pretty good too. And that's next on Sikkim 365 Radio.
If you are looking to sell your home or buy a new one here in Waco, you need to call my friend Lance Donaldson and the Donaldson family team, brokered by eXp Realty, 254-214-3713, or online, lancedonaldson.exprealty.com. Look at the seller's market right now, and in that market, you're going to get a great deal for the house you're trying to sell. But are you going to dump it all down the house you're trying to buy? Well, you need someone like Lance to help you guide you through that to make sure that you get the best deal on both ends. That is what Lance will do for you, 254-214-3713, or online at lancedonaldson.exprealty.com.
It's time for some high school football. Berg Colgan Ford proudly celebrates the Panthers, Cadets, Lions, and all the Central Texas football teams as they march their way through the season and down the field. Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Berg Colgan Ford. We'd love to show you our Broncos, Raptors, and Mustangs. These vehicles are winners with their sporty options and designs. Nominate who you think deserves the Built Ford Tough Player of the Week at FordPlayerOfTheWeek.com. Visit us anytime at BKFord.com, making buying your next Ford simple at BK Ford.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With more than 160,000 alumni worldwide and counting, the Baylor family is growing. And through the university's expanded Baylor alumni program, the family is growing closer. With hundreds of local volunteers planning events in cities and towns around the country, you can gather with fellow Bears no matter where you are. So, get connected, get something started, get involved, and make plans to get together with Baylor alumni. Visit us at baylor.edu/alumni.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
I don't know if he's listening, but Todd Dunnigan, welcome to Sikkim 365 Sports. Bumped into him earlier today. He said, hey, where you guys been? And, of course, we're now part of 365 Sports on YouTube and have been since April of 2020. Todd said he was going to download the app and start listening to the show. Todd, thank you for being a part of the show. We're now joined by Drew Davison, Fort Worth Star-Telegram, covers TCU and many things as well, college football and others. And this seems to be kind of a little bit of a cat fight. Am I getting that right, Drew? These two teams don't like each other.
Yeah, no, they definitely don't, Smokey, and you know, it's kind of like the TCU Baylor rivalry. There's really no love lost between these schools, and we can thank a kid named Rasheed Rice, who actually played in the Fort Worth area at Richland High School, kind of added the latest fuel to the fire with some comments today, just saying, you know, when people come to Texas, they come for Dallas, not Fort Worth, and things like that. So I'm sure that'll be talked about in the TCU locker room.
Oh, they clearly haven't been to Sundance Square, Drew, if they say that. But this SMU team has been built now over the last few years. They're not an easy out. They're a tough team. Is this maybe the most evenly matched we've seen this matchup in quite a while?
Yeah, I think so, Paul. And I do think, you know, Sonny Dykes has done a nice job of, you know, really working the transfer portal, so to speak, and getting some talent that way. And obviously, you know, 2 years ago, his scheme was pretty dang good against TCU. And, you know, he spent a year, maybe 2 years on Gary Patterson's staff, kind of between his Cal head coaching job and taking over SMU. So he does have some familiarity with TCU. So I do feel like, you know, it's a fairly evenly matched, just in terms of talent. I do think TCU obviously probably is a little deeper, has more depth, but Sonny Dykes has certainly done a nice job, especially when you look at the receivers and some of their position guys.
Over on the Frogs offensive side of things, obviously a lot returning. Max Duggan, Quentin Johnston, who we saw play in high school a few different times against Midway, and also Zach Evans, who no matter what Gary Patterson says, Drew, everybody knows who Zach Evans is. We all remember his recruitment, but what kind of a revelation has he been for the TCU offense?
I mean, he's been huge, and yeah, I think Gary's beef has more to do with you know, I like a Dave Campbell's magazine, not including Dak on the all Texas preseason college, but clearly they had there's pretty good running backs throughout the state, but yeah, I mean, there's no question Zach Evans is a difference maker with the ball in his hand. You know, he's a guy. You know, I know Gary said ideally 10 to 12 carries, you know, to kind of keep him fresh, keep the committee happy, so to speak. But you know, if he's running hot, TCU's going to ride him, and he certainly was against Cal.
Yeah, he's special. There's no question. And Max Duggan, I like this guy. I do. I know he's got to get a little bit better. And you see the quarterback play right now around the conference, even some of the guys that are supposed to be pretty good. Where is he as his progression as far as maturity and growing up? Because at times I don't think Patterson trusted him. I know he had to deal with a couple of bumps and bruises, but I kind of like the way he plays the game.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And you know, the biggest issue kind of for Max Duggan and TCU, and it's kind of been a trend throughout, you know, since he's been quarterback, is TCU tends to get off to slower starts. I think last year there's only one game they scored a touchdown on the opening offensive drive, and you saw them get off to a slow start again against Cal a couple weeks ago. So they just have to figure out how, you know, to start faster. And then on top of that, he has to get better with the vertical routes and the deep ball and connecting on those, because that's been, again, kind of an issue. You know, hey, when do you hit driver? When do you know, hit wedge, so to speak? Get some air under the ball, let receivers go make plays. So that's been a work in progress. But, you know, as far as the grit, the toughness, the mindset, all of that, Max passes with flying colors. It's just, you know, if you're going to nitpick, there are a couple areas where he needs to get better, and he'd be the first to admit it.
What have you seen from Quentin Johnston this season? Is he taking a step forward in your estimation?
Oh, for sure. And Quentin Johnston's a kid, you know, who had a pretty, you know, decent freshman season, you know, flashed at times, but he also, I think, had 8 or 9 drops. And, you know, just talking to coaches, teammates, I mean, you know, his work ethic and mentality, you know, is kind of rubbing off on the team. He's one of the first guys there, last to leave. He's always on the jugs machine, you know, kind of to combat that drop issue, so to speak. And he's also a guy, yards after catch, you know, Pro Football Focus had him, I believe, 12th in the country last year in YAC yards. And this year, I think he's over 6-7 yards after catch. And he had a big play for a 45-yard touchdown against Cal, where I think he, you know, took it 25, 30 yards after catch for the score. So that's really where he's dangerous. If he can get the ball in his hands in some open space, he can make things happen.
So, Drew, TCU is always going to be solid defensively. We know that, and they've got a couple of just banger-type players on the defensive line. They've, you know, got Travius Hodges-Tomlinson, who we covered as well at Midway. They're in the secondary, roaming and making some plays. But there are some questions. I mean, if you do have some things you're looking for on the defensive side of the ball, what areas do they need to clean up, or maybe who needs to come back into the lineup, or what are you kind of seeing as far as the TCU defense goes?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's always going to be solid. It's just about, you know, kind of being special. And I do think, you know, when you look at their defensive ends, the pass rush, they've only had 1 sack through the first 2 games. Granted, it's a small sample size, so this is a unit they're really high on, and they feel like they should be able to get some pressure on the quarterback. It's, you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You know, some teams have been getting the ball out fast, quick passes, things like that. So they do need, you know, to have time, I guess, so to speak, to get to the quarterback. But they feel like that's going to come around eventually in terms of getting more pressure on the quarterback. And then, you know, from the secondary perspective, Trey's been playing well. He actually almost had an interception last week for back-to-back weeks, but, you know, it was overturned upon review. But the other secondary is very young. I mean, the safeties, they lost 2 guys, Ardarius Washington and Trey Merrick, to the NFL. So they do have some, you know, young, costly experience going on kind of during some of these games, but they do like the potential and, the ceiling of the unit overall.
Yeah, it seems to be the possibility with Zach Evans, even though there's youth in certain places like you mentioned, that this could be a team. This is obviously SMU's a non-conference game, but do you get the impression that Patterson likes this team? And that doesn't mean that most coaches aren't going to always say they do, but you can kind of tell sometimes. Does he feel like this one could be not special, but pretty good?
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. And you can tell he really likes Max Duggan as his quarterback, as the leader. Just kind of his mindset, his mentality. He likes the team chemistry. He kind of, in typical Gary Patterson, he likes that they're pretty much flying under the radar still. They're not ranked. Obviously they're receiving votes. They're right on the cusp of the top 25, but they're not in it yet. So he kind of likes, kind of flying under the radar. And I really do feel like, he believes this team can get to the Big 12 championship and compete for a conference title. I think he feels they've got enough talent to get there and do that. Now, whether they do or not, we'll see. But he does, I feel, and I'd be, honest too, I feel like they've got that same type of potential when you look at a Zach Evans, when you look at a Max Duggan, what they have on defense. There's no reason they shouldn't contend for a Big 12 title.
Thank you, Drew. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time. 4-Star Telegram. Drew Davison covers TCU with us as they play SMU this weekend. Yesterday, Billy Embody joined us. And then today, we told you for the second time in 3 weeks, Tanner Mordecai wins the Campbell Award trophy for the best performance by a player who plays for a Texas college or university and or is from the state of Texas as well. Craig puts together those nominations every single week. And I thought this week, Craig, was probably the least explosive of the options. There's always like 3 or 4 you're like. In fact, Zach Evans a couple of weeks ago, the week that Tanner Mordecai, it could have been Evans. But it was probably the least amount of explosive nominations that I've seen in a while.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was just not as good of a list, yeah.
But that will change because there's amazing talent from the state and playing for the state's schools as well. When we come back, Barrett Salih, he covers college football for CBS Sports on the landscape of where we are after a few weeks. Is there an elite team? Is there an alpha dog? Does everybody have maybe a few chinks in the armor? All of that next with Barrett Salih, and this is Sikkim 365 Radio. All right, I'm about to do this only because Jack hasn't asked. He's going to order a couple of pizzas from Marco's Pizza. Right around the corner, there's 4 locations in the Waco area, 4 locations in Waco, at China Spring and Woodway, Belmead, and also their new location in Robinson. Bob Mock, of course, the owner. Marco's Pizza, pizza lovers get it. My favorite is the thin crust, all meat. Their Italian sausage is delicious, along with everything else they put on it. The original sauce from day one, and, of course, a very nice blend of different cheeses that they put on their pizza as well. Marco's Pizza will deliver to you. Give them a call. Order online if you want them to leave it at your front door. If you want to stay kind of away from any kind of like, hey, how you doing? I'm one that wants to see the delivery person. Give them a tip, maybe in cash, actually, rather than just on the debit card. Marco's Pizza with 4 locations to choose from in Waco, Belmead, Woodway, the new location in Robinson, and also in China Spring on China Spring Road. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
The thing about having a naked truck is that you get exposed for the equipment you don't have. Take, for example, your rear end. If you don't have anything back there, you're exposed about what you don't have, and that's a life. However, if you cover that rear end with a hitch, you're telling the world, hey, I got a little junk in my bed, and I'm ready to pull something. A camper, RV, boat, trailer, jet skis, heck, even a bike rack. A hitch says, I have a life beyond driving my truck to and from work. And Pickup Outfitters is the place to get a hitch for your truck, SUV, van, even some cars. We sell and install just about any kind of hitch you need. Receiver hitches from light to heavyweight to pull just about anything. And gooseneck hitches and fifth wheels when you're ready to pull the heavy stuff. And don't forget trailer and brake controller wiring. It's so important to have wiring professionally and correctly installed by the pros at Pickup Outfitters. So it's time to cover that gaping hole in the rear end of your truck with a hitch installed by Pickup Outfitters. Check us out online at createacommotion.com.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness continues to add more weapons to your getting or staying in shape arsenal with 8 brand new treadmills ready for you to run or walk a mile or 2 or 10. And with the explosion of interest in pickleball with instructors Joe Rosa and Jody Thurman with more courts available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness with large flat screens stretched across the weight room with Wi-Fi available, their own app to enjoy news, business, weather, or sports. Everywhere you look, there's energy, passion, and commitment. New touchless water fountains outside of each locker room, and all the locker rooms with showers, sauna, and whirlpool. Upgraded PA system throughout the world-class tennis courts with a youth academy led by pro Britt Coleman. Fitness and tennis merchandise available and a tanning bed. I promise you'll look and feel better. You just need to walk through the front door. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness with personal trainers Christy London and Randall Corley. 40-plus group exercise classes, including twice-a-week boot camp. It's time to react today, not tomorrow. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
Escape the mundane with the responsive power and exhilarating agility of a new Cadillac from Richard Carr Cadillac. Smile behind the wheel again in the supercharged sophistication of a CT4 or CT5 sedan, or the sporty and spacious XT4, XT5, or XT6 lineup of SUVs. Starting at only $33,395, the Cadillac of your dreams is waiting now at an affordable price at Richard Carr. Test drive from the expansive selection at Richard Carr Cadillac, or let us bring a test drive to you. Go to richardcarcadillac.com to schedule a test drive today.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
High formation look for Baylor. They give it to the fullback. Touchdown, Baylor.
Why not?
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Barrett Sallee, CBS Sports National College Football writer and columnist, with us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Barrett, we've seen a lot these first few weeks. We've seen big-name programs struggling. We've seen Alabama taken to the limit by Florida. We know what's happening with Clemson, among some others, even Ohio State, Oklahoma. Is it, even though in the end, usually the blue bloods or the big boys end up in the end, is it kind of made for a more interesting start to the season?
Yeah, no doubt. There's no doubt. It's, you kind of look around and everybody's kind of flawed, right? Like Georgia, you're not necessarily sure what their offense can do. We've seen glimpses, but then with Alabama, can they run the football? What's up with what happened against Florida? And Oklahoma obviously has its issues. Ohio State has a loss. So, yeah, I mean, it definitely is one of those years where it's all these contenders are flawed, and it's all about fixing whatever those flaws are as quickly as possible. We didn't really have that last year with Alabama. We really didn't have that last year 2 years ago with LSU. So, yeah, it's different. There's no doubt. It is shaping up to be a year where, maybe 2014, where, kind of intrigue all over the place. And I think a lot of it has to do, two things. One, the quarterbacks for the top contenders generally are inexperienced. And then also you have a lot of super seniors across the country. And that experience certainly helps in situations like this because they've been in these hostile environments. Because I think you got to factor in, like DJ Uiagalelei, he had not been in a sold-out stadium until the first weekend of the season, like, home or away. That's intimidating. So veterans, super seniors certainly play a bigger role this year than maybe they have in years past.
Have we gotten to the point, and it's not like it just started, but because of the playoff, and initially, of course, there's just been the 4, and who knows what might happen eventually with expansion of whether it goes to as many as 12, but is it almost to the point now that every game is almost over-analyzed? It's a great game. It's great that so many people care, but every single game, half, moment is a beauty pageant. Is that good?
Yeah, it's great. That's why we like the sport, because there's so much uncertainty with what the end of the season will look like. The college football championship format right now is designed to judge each season based on whatever the landscape of the season dictates. And so because of that, you have the passion, you have the uncertainty, you have, 2 weeks ago, Ohio State loses, the Big Ten has a bad week, and, they're never going to get a team in. Last week it's the ACC and the Pac-12. They're never going to get a team in. Those passionate responses and reactions, those are what make this sport great, and that's why this regular season is the best regular season in all sports, because you don't know what the end will bring, and I like that. And right now we're going to get a whole big dose of that because there's going to be a lot of twists and turns as we go through the season.
Auburn obviously played well at Penn State, but it was a huge win, obviously, for Franklin. Last year was for a lot of teams. You don't throw it out, but obviously it was different for so many teams, and they struggled. How big a win was that, not just for Penn State, but also for the Big Ten?
Oh, huge. It was much needed for the Big Ten because of what happened with Ohio State the previous week. And huge for Penn State, I think, because in retrospect, when all is said and done, we're going to look at that game and think, wow, Auburn's pretty darn good and Penn State's really good. It was a well-played game. I know the officials, kind of had their say, but both of those teams are really solid football teams. And for Penn State to go out there and find a way to get it done against a really good defense, that says an awful lot about that Sean Clifford, James Franklin, that entire program. So it was enormous. It solidified Penn State in my mind as the best team in the Big Ten right this very second. And I just don't see any signs of them slowing down, barring injury, because a lot of those guys have played a ton of football, and they're not going to be intimidated or surprised by anything that they see. So it was definitely enormous for Penn State. And for the Big Ten, they now sort of have, that quality win to sort of hang out there no matter who's in contention for the playoff, because, obviously Ohio State was the favorite and maybe still is the favorite in the minds of some people. But, Penn State can now say, hey, look, we went and beat an SEC team and covered the spread and did it against a defense that's really darn solid. So it's huge for both parties. There's no doubt.
It's not the first time ever that teams that are not a part of the autonomy or Power 5 have beaten teams in the Power 5, but we've seen it flare up. Obviously, with Fresno State or others, there's been these games that's happening. Like, for example, Memphis beats an SEC team in Mississippi State. Yeah, they're a mid-level or bottom level, but we're seeing that. You think this is there anything to these teams knowing, one, they're not bad, but also there's a little bit of a turf war with the group of 5 or below, that they're kind of like fighting for their I guess, future?
Yeah, I think there's an element to that for sure, because when this age of realignment, A, they're trying to fight for their future, make themselves look attractive for whoever comes calling. But then B, if they get left behind, they're going to be pretty bitter about it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there's definitely that aspect to it. And then I just think there's also sort of the talent gap has condensed. I think across the board, because you have super seniors who have stuck around. You've had players transferring to try to find playing time. You're going to see more of that with the immediate eligibility rule. I think that there's talented players at the Group of 5 level that in some cases chose to go there initially, or in other cases like Jake Haener at Fresno State, chose to go after losing the quarterback battle, one that in retrospect he probably should have won if you're Washington, if you're Jimmy Lake. I think it's all of that combined, and we're going to see more of it because roster management is going to be so hard to manage for coaches because of the free year of eligibility and all the other stuff that's been going on.
Barrett, again, Salih with us, CBS Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio. The Big 12, Oklahoma's the highest-rated team. They've had some of their warts, and in fact, Nebraska stayed pretty close with them, and we know Nebraska has been down, but that was kind of a game in which it looked like they played better, although they have their own issues. That's a completely different story. Iowa State had the early loss to Iowa. There's another nice win for the Big 10. Who is the Big 12 in your opinion right now?
Flawed and on shaky ground, because name me a power in the Big 12 right now. I mean, the only answer you could give is Oklahoma, but I would argue right now that Oklahoma looks far from it, especially when their calling card has been their offense, and it looks shaky to a point where people are clamoring for Caleb right now in Norman, and their defense has just sort of been okay by Oklahoma standards, which is not a compliment at all. So, yeah, there are so many different things going against Oklahoma right now, and you can't really go with Iowa State. Obviously, they have that loss. Who else is out there that is even remotely competitive right now on a national level? There's not. So it is a conference right now that sort of lacks its perceived identity, and it needs something to happen, preferably with Oklahoma, but with somebody to at least show that it has an elite level team. And right now there's really not one.
What about what has happened with the landscape of college football ever since the Texas and Oklahoma story popped? The Big 12 has been able to at least add something. Of course, they may be wanting to add more. The overall landscape of college football, what is the end run, do you think, Barrett?
Oh, man, that is such a good question. To me, I still feel like the 16-team super conference thing is going to happen. It's just going to be so difficult and so bizarre, the route that we take to get there. I feel like the Pac-12, because they said they're not going to expand, is missing an opportunity to go get BYU, to go get Boise State. Right? Like, BYU's obviously not attainable. Boise State, from what our Dennis Dodd has said, might be the next in line of the Big 12. So it's such a dysfunctional sport, but it's in some way, eventually we're going to get to 16-team super conferences. And honestly, I think the sort of crux of that, sort of the catalyst, so to speak, would be what Notre Dame decides to do. Mm-hmm. Because its NBC contract is not that much compared to what every other school is bringing in. Now, the PR and the visibility is huge, but in reality, they're not making a ton of money. And if the SEC starts inking $80 million contracts after it takes in Texas and Oklahoma, then Notre Dame's going to look around and say, okay, what can we add to the ACC, and how much value will we provide? And so once that happens, which I think it will at some point, because it is all about money, and at some point you do have to swallow your pride with your independence, even if you do cherish it, which I think is fine. Notre Dame makes a decision, and then sort of every domino falls from there.
All right, I want to tell everybody, you and I, we were talking about having you on, and you coach your son's Little League team, which is phenomenal. Your daughter, you take her to gymnastics, phenomenal. You're enjoying that life as a father, and I told you in a text, don't ever stop, right? Always keep your priorities. I know you have a lot to do professionally, but that's awesome. How much fun is it to coach your son in Little League?
Oh, it's a lot of fun, but it is stressful. I mean, he's 10. And, like, he's not, like, the best player on the team, but he's not the worst, and he's, like, a real try-hard, right? And so, like, he needs a lot of coaching. But as you know, as a parent, like, the parent can't coach. Like, the other coaches have to do that because the kids deal with dad all the time. So I have to relegate him to some other coaches sometimes, but it's stressful. I mean, honestly, like, it's more stressful and more fulfilling than anything I did with my athletic career because, man, when he gets a walk-off hit or makes a good play, I'm more excited than I ever was when I was playing.
Yeah, it is a great moment. It's a thrill. I'll never forget Craig, who does a show with me, hit a home run one time. I mean, it was like the most flawless swing, massive. I mean, it's like you just don't ever lose those moments. You know, you just really don't. Barrett, thanks for your time. I know you're busy. Barrett Salih from CBS Sports on college football, Sikkim 365 Radio.
Labor Day has come and gone, but the savings continue all month long at Richard Carr. Richard Carr Motors is loaded with premium pre-owned cars and trucks, and each pre-owned vehicle goes through a 172-point inspection before it ever hits the lot. With dozens of lenders, Richard Carr says yes when others say no, as 100% credit approval is always the goal, and they've got a lot of great offers for you right now at Richard Carr. Among the models on the lot are the line of Cadillacs, the ultimate American luxury vehicle, sophisticated looks, powerful and exhilarating drive. At Richard Carr Cadillac, they'll find the right caddy for you, whether it's a smooth and powerful CT4 sedan starting at only $33,395, or perhaps it's the XT4, XT5, or XT6 lineup of SUVs in the style and size that fit your lifestyle. And if they don't have the right car or truck for you on the lot right now, well, they can put you first in line for the many cars and trucks that are heading their way in the future. So get your name on the priority list right now to get the perfect vehicle for yourself as soon as they arrive. And for the folks out there listening in the Waco, Central Texas area, Richard Carr is your local hometown dealership. So give them a chance to earn your business with great prices, free oil changes on new cars and trucks, and superior service after the sale. Let them bring the test drive to you, or come by the dealership and see the Yellow Tag Labor Day savings that continue all month long at Richard Carr. They are owned, operated, and run by loyal and proud Baylor Bears.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed, smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. And a long distance meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon. Next time you need to feed 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's group meal.
Next in line.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Grant Dideker, under the umbrella of Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, McLennan County agent. When you contact people about insurance, and people are hit up with it all the time, what do you tell them? What do you say? I know you say you educate, but Texas Farm Bureau Insurance is obviously successful for a lot of different reasons. Right. And has hundreds of thousands.
Well, it's personal service. Okay. It's one-on-one service. Just yesterday, went to a client's house, met with the couple, went over all the coverages, and they said, wow, we've, never had this before. We've had this different insurance and that different insurance, but we've never had somebody actually come to the house and go over everything with us. And wow, we really appreciate that, especially this day and time where it's just a click of a button and you really don't know who you're dealing with. It's a different person you call every time you call that 800 number. You don't know who your agent is. Now they have a face with the name, and it's more personal service.
Grant Dideker, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, McLennan County agent. If someone wants to contact you, just straight on your cell phone?
Yep, 254-265-0442.
Grant Dideker, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, a McLennan County agent.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco, is a hidden gem. They've got a great selection of spirits, wine, and the most extensive selection of craft beer in Waco in their gorgeous walk-in fridge. And they have an amazing array of high-end bourbons like Pinhook, Weller, Buffalo Trace, Brush Creek, Hotel, Garrison Brothers, Thomas S. Moore, Hooten Young, and Bardstown. Great customer service and a convenient and speedy drive-through window. Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Our weekly segment with Baylor Director of Athletics Mack Rhodes is brought to you by Edward Jones Investments Brokers, Tom Albers, Brad Wilson, Ben Erlinson, and Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
All right, here we go. It is Tuesday, 4/20. Mack Rhodes, Baylor's Director of Athletics, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Mack, thank you very much for your time. What's it like on campus? This is a game where you're going to find out about your team, and obviously Iowa State will learn more. They had their loss to Iowa. Is there a sense that this is a big moment game for Baylor football?
Yeah, I think there's a sense of excitement. Obviously, Big 12 home opener against a really good football team. Ranked 14th in the country, I think, in both polls, and having gold out. It's also family weekend, and so there's just a lot of excitement surrounding the game. And you said it. I think, and again, I say this very respectfully. With the first 3 games, we did what we expected to do, and thought that we got a little better each game, but this will be a formidable test. Iowa State's really big and physical, obviously well coached, and so looking forward to the challenge. And we need it to be sold out when we think about Baylor and national relevancy. The top 15 programs in the country, and we've certainly have been at that, but these are the games that sell out, and we need it sold out, we need it loud, and we need the energy. So looking forward to it, and we've got some tickets still left to sell, but I'm hopeful that we can get there and make it really an unbelievable college football environment.
Mack, I asked this question knowing that your best opponents are still ahead of you on this schedule, but does the first 3 games kind of show you how much weight we should have put behind a COVID year's football season?
Yeah, I mean, for us it did, just because or it does, because missing the spring. I just think that really had a huge impact for us last year, and again, wouldn't have as much if you had a staff together and the same head coach, same system. But when all of that changed for us, I think that was really impactful, negatively for us, and being able to have the staff go through a spring practice together, and with our student athletes, with each other, I thought was really, really big. I mentioned this to somebody the other day. The road trip, I went into the dining area where everybody was eating, and just the camaraderie amongst the staff was just different than what it was last year. And I think a big part of that was just not being around each other as much as this staff has been, not going through a spring. And so, I think that absolutely it's made a difference. And, I give kudos to Coach Grimes and the rest of the offensive staff. They've done a really, really nice job. And, I feel like offensively we've got an identity, and we know who we are and who we want to be, and not trying to be, somebody that we're not.
Do you sense a difference with Dave Aranda now in year 2 versus year 1?
Yeah, I do. And I say that in a very positive way. I think he continues to grow as a head coach. I think he made a comment, maybe national TV, the Kansas game, or maybe the commentators alluded to it about him being an introvert and trying to find his trying to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and more outspoken and standard and demanding and holding people accountable. And those are all areas that he's grown tremendously in, and continues to grow in. He's, and he's going to continue to do that. And that's what I appreciate. I think the great ones continue to evolve and learn. And, we've talked about it before. He's extremely smart, very, very intellectual, but also humble, or I shouldn't say and humble. And I just think, he's always going to continue to look and see how he can be better. And, he's done a great job with this program in a very short time.
All right, I got to ask you, because I went JUCO out of high school, and there are times when I have an opportunity to sit down and interview him or listen to him in the press conference, and there are times which I am not intellectually smart enough to sometimes grasp what he's trying to say, because he can get very deep and yet be very simple. What did you see that almost immediately? Did you almost feel that from him immediately, that he can go into a level of deep and yet also it's making sense?
Yeah, I mean, my goodness, he's a philosophy major. That's number one.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And which probably surprises no one, but I really appreciate. I love that when we can get into conversations that get deep and get philosophical, but yet be simple. I love that part of him, and I think our players do. He's that's who he is. And here's the other thing that I appreciate about him is he's not trying to be somebody that he's not. He knows who he is. He followed a coach here who did a great job, but was very much, very different in terms of his personality. And, Dave's not trying to be that person or anybody else, or the person that he worked for, at any of the previous institutions that he was defensive coordinator at. He knows who he is. And that doesn't mean, like I said, that he's not trying to grow, because he is, but he's not trying to be somebody he's not.
I know that when you interview coaches, like one of your, topics you have to make sure is their knowledge, or, their X and O knowledge of the game. Was that checked off your list pretty quickly? Like right when you asked him an X and O question in the interview, like, nope, that's fine. We got that one covered.
Yeah. He's really good in that area. As he knows football. He's got that piece covered on both sides of the ball. I know that as a defensive coordinator, sometimes you might think it's just the defensive side of the ball, but I think because he was a defensive coordinator and he knows, being in that spot, what's really hard to defend. I think, equally, he's really smart scheme wise on the offensive side of the ball as well. So, it didn't take long to figure that one out.
So, Mac, we know that there's a gold out planned for Saturday. Folks need to wear gold to the game if they can. But anything else that fans need to know coming in as far as activities or just anything planned for this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, just know that it's family weekend, and we expect to have a big crowd and just come, be loud, bring your energy. Let's make it the hardest place that Iowa State has to play at this year.
Mac, I don't know if you heard the story, but what's his name? Charlie Brewer is transferring.
What's his name?
I'm sorry. Yeah, Charlie Brewer is no longer a part of the Utah program. I know you wouldn't have inside information on that, but it's about what he was when he was at Baylor, his 4 years at Baylor. How do you describe what he gave Baylor and who he was when he was here?
Yeah, one, I would just say I hope Charlie and his family I hope they're in a good place, and I did see that he was leaving the program. I don't know if it's been clear yet whether or not he's entering the transfer portal and is going to continue to try to play or not. But thinking about him, and he's got a soft spot in my heart, and I think for many of us here, within the coaching staff, the administration, sports medicine, strength and conditioning, because he was such a competitor, and he laid it on the line. And you think about the Sugar Bowl year 2019 and some of the shots that he took and got back up and walked back into the game, and the way he led that team, just a fearless competitor. Felt like he always represented Baylor with class and character, and again, he'll always be one of my favorites for all that he did.
We have a picture of you somewhere around here in the office, Mac, where I believe it is the
Denzel Mims,
the Denzel Mims touchdown that you were right there. You could have called it. The official was confused. You were that close to the play. Maybe one of my favorite pictures of you was from that moment.
Yeah, no, that was I remember that moment. I was a little bit fired up, and as I can get a little bit sometimes, and again, that was a great moment, great comeback, and it's about competing, right? And in everything you do in life, you compete. And I was telling somebody on the road trip, and it was just a small little detail, but I was talking about in everything you do, there's a winner or a loser. And so bring it every single moment, every single minute.
Mac, non-football related, I saw where Baylor women's basketball put out the schedule for Nikki Collins' tip-off Texas tour. He's going to be hitting a handful of cities beginning next week. How excited are you to see her out on the road, meeting fans and people getting to know her a little bit better ahead of the season?
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I appreciate, Craig, you bringing it up. And, Lubbock and Houston and Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, Tyler, Permian Basin. And so just an opportunity for our Baylor family to get to know her a little bit better. And they'll absolutely, love that hour or hour and a half that they get to spend with her and hear from her. And so again, that will be a lot of fun. Scott's going to join her at the one in Dallas, which I believe is on the 28th. And so that will be a double header and again, a lot of fun for that group. But she's had a huge impact, and they begin official practice I think a week from tomorrow, and excited for her in that program.
Last thing, it does seem as if things have settled down quite a bit when it comes to the future of college football, the conference, and much more. Is that this because the season has begun, or because of the announcements from a couple of 2 or 3 weeks ago with what you guys are doing within the Big 12? How is it behind the scenes? Pretty quiet?
Yeah, it's been a little bit quiet, and I think you're right, Smoak, when you say it's, we got over that hurdle and the announcement of the 4. I think, the work is still out in front of us, and we'll begin to really dive into that when we think about, scheduling, et cetera, right? Those 3 teams are still, or the 3 American Athletic Conference teams, they're still in the process of when they leave that current conference. And I think, that's probably the next thing for us to get through. And then we can really go to work in terms of scheduling and some other things that are associated with it. So, obviously we're keeping an eye on those 4 every football weekend and wishing them all of the best.
Well, I think BYU is going to be Pac-12 champions soon, Max.
Yeah.
So they're going to be a great addition with the way they've started off. No, it's been a good start for all those teams.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, BYU, I was able to get home in time and watch the most of, if not all of it. I think I've got to watch all of it. The Arizona State BYU game, and BYU is a physical football team, and again, when we talked about adding them football relevancy, they're physically at that Power 5 level, and they look really, really good. And watched a little bit of the Cincinnati at Indiana game before we headed over to the stadium on Saturday. And although they got down early, they came back, found a way to win, and watched the Central Florida game. That was a heartbreaking loss Friday night. Did not get a chance to see Houston playing. I think they may have been playing while we were not sure. But wishing those 4 all the best.
Thank you, Mac. See you Saturday. Mac Rhodes, Director of Athletics at Baylor University, with us most every Tuesday around 4:20 or so.
And I didn't throw it in there at the end, but we'll also see BYU very soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here in the next few weeks.
Still it's just weird. It's just almost spooky that the year they have Brigham Young on their schedules, the year all of this happens, and nobody saw it coming. Not even those who saw it coming until, of course, it got deep into the year, and here we are. And I do think the season's starting. I do think that there are some teams that have a little bit of a red ass, so to speak. Excuse me. That doesn't mean that's going to help you win, but I think there's some people a little extra focused and tuned in to try to say, hey, what about us? And I think there's a little bit of that turf war pride going on. That doesn't mean it lasts, but so far you have seen that a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, as far as expansion goes, that's obviously a hot topic for a lot of people and why a lot of people have watched us. But with the season starting, that has kind of been pushed to the side. Once the Big 12 made their decision, yes, there is that dangling carrot of they're going to add some more teams most likely in the next few years, but that's a very open time frame. That could be a year from now. That could be 10 years from now for all we know. So that's very much TBD type of thing still. And so, with nothing really, no big move to make now. I mean, Texas and Oklahoma have made their move. Big 12's made their move. American, is going to probably fill up some teams, but they're not going to do it right in the middle of a football season. It's going to be probably more of an off-season type of a thing. So I'm sure we'll still get little sprinkles here and there or little crumbs of a trail to what realignment's ultimately going to look like. But right now, everybody's too busy with what's in front of them, and that's understandable.
All right, what's in front of us
and
will be...
I got to make mention, too, you're talking about college football and teams having a prove-it thing. It's very true. BYU, Cincinnati, maybe it's just because I'm watching them with Big 12 eyes now, but it's like, okay, they got a little extra juice. But I also think the fact that you've got so many 6th, 7th-year seniors, so many people who have played games, it's just making for a better product, and it's making everybody across the board a lot more balanced than they typically would be. Teams who would normally lose their star player or whatever, and then, it takes them a couple years to get wound back up. I mean, now everybody pretty much had everybody return, so everybody's stronger than they normally are heading into this season.
When we come back, Craig Smoak's off the radar in the 5 o'clock hour. We will also hear from John McClain, Hall of Fame writer, among many other things. We'll be able to get to some of your text and your chat, 254-339-1122. But coming up next, Craig Smoak, off the radar, Sikkim, 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Since 1997, Pickup Outfitters has been outfitting trucks, SUVs, and vans at 220 Lake Air Drive. And they hope to do this for a long, long time. And what Jay Arrett has done, the owner, is pretty amazing. I'd driven down that road. One of our other clients, sponsors, is Waco Custom Marketplace. And I didn't really know much about Pickup Outfitters because there's a lot of buildings and businesses in that area. Jay Arrett took over, invited me to come see him. I did. Pretty impressive. Waco's Pickup Outfitter, because they sell highest quality truck accessories at a fair price, professionally install them to factory specifications. One of the things that Jay showed me when I went over there was the fact that they had gone into the back and improved, more space, clean. The Texan specialist where the bays are is fantastic, outstanding customer service for your car, your truck, or your van as well. Everything purchased and installed at Pickup Outfitters or by Pickup Outfitters comes with a famous lifetime installation guarantee and free warranty assistance. Jay Arrett, Pickup Outfitters, online at createacommotion.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Ram Power Days are going on now at Allen Samuels with the new 2021 Ram 1500 Quad Cab Lone Star with total values up to $7,000 or 2.9% for 72 months. The 1500 Lone Star Quad Crew Cab offers style and dependability for any job. It's the Ram Power Days going on now at Allen Samuels, 201 West Loop 340 in Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
See dealer for details. All offers have credit requirements.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. Brought to you by Pickup Outfitters. Since 1997, we've been outfitting trucks, SUVs, and vans at 220 Lake Air Drive or createacommotion.com.
All right, welcome back into Sikkim 365 Radio. Time to take a look at some stories that are a little bit off the radar. And for us, that's pretty much everything not named college football or the Cowboys, which is great because it gives me a lot of other options to work with Off the Radar. And I want to start off with Monday Night Football and viewership and things of that nature. Last night saw the Packers and Lions, 35-17. The Packers win that game. It was an all right game. I'll say this, the Lions play hard. You know, they've got a long way to go, but they do play hard, and they seem to have an identity under Dan Campbell and kind of a work ethic thing going on. But for the Packers, obviously a lot of Aaron Rodgers drama, and last night able to put that behind them and get a big win. Now, we knew the ratings in week number 1 were just massive because it was, return of full-on the whole spectacle of Monday Night Football, and plus the game itself was freaking incredible. So ratings dipped a little bit for the Lions and Packers, but that's not why I'm bringing up Monday Night Football. It's because the Manning brothers have become the stars of Monday Night Football. Yep. And the Manning cast on ESPN2 back in week 1 of Monday Night Football, they got pretty good ratings for the Ravens and the Raiders. And there was a lot of people that tuned into the mega cast and the Manning brothers. So this time around, last night they had, obviously Pat McAfee made a guest appearance, which was pretty funny. He was talking about basically in so many words, the gambling and I didn't want to see that score right there, things of that nature. And it was obviously having a lot of fun with Peyton. Even got the whole college football world turned on their head by throwing out there that Arch Manning had committed to West Virginia, which a lot of people believed because they weren't watching the game and didn't realize that's Pat McAfee, a West Virginia alum, and Peyton Manning, his old Colts teammate, having a lot of fun together. So no, Arch Manning, top quarterback prospect, has not committed to West Virginia. But, man, can you imagine if being a West Virginia fan and having no idea of what was really going on, and you get a text like, Arch Manning's committed to the Mountaineers?
Media outlets, those who are college football recruiting sites, there was a lot of, a lot of people that ran with it. And when he first said it, I was like, damn, I didn't even know they were among his top 5 or 6 teams. And then I saw an image where who was the top 5, and they're all, the dogs, and including Texas is one of them, Texas, Georgia. And I was like, golly. And he just so nonchalantly said it. And one thing about Peyton Manning, you always thought of him as such a cerebral. He was, but he's got a smart ass in him. Eli's got a little of that sense, that subtle. They go after each other. I watched the entire game last night with their audio in the background. That's what I was doing.
They had one of my favorite, I don't know if you remember their Sports Center commercial they had where everybody was touring the.
Yeah, and
they're kicking each other and tripping each other, and Archie's turning around and giving them the sour dad look.
Yeah.
That's great.
Another highlight, other than Pat McAfee and the Arch Manning thing and all that, was Rob Gronkowski also joined the broadcast. And I have to say that the highlight and probably the most stunning thing that Peyton Manning heard last night was Rob Gronkowski describing how he basically doesn't do anything. He just shows up to games and Tom Brady tells him what he's supposed to do. And that's it. He doesn't watch film. He doesn't break down teams. I don't even think he knows what he's doing half the time. But he's just so good and athletic and big that he just shows up on game day, and they say, and Tom Brady tells him, this is what you're doing on this play, and then he does it, and it works. Yep. And that's Rob Gronkowski. He is truly one of a kind, man. He is something else.
He's making some money in the ads now too.
He is. In fact, he went after Peyton on that. He goes, I think I'm doing more commercials than you and Brady are. And he is. He's, I wondered a little bit about him young, and he was, you saw some pictures about him partying. Of course, most people would with the money he has and the fandom and the fame. He caught a pass in the end zone the other day. And again, he's about 6'40" and 800 pounds, but he's just such an athletic, nimble guy for a man his size. I thought he was done, and look where he is again. Just a monstrous red zone target.
One of his exact quotes was, first off, my teammate Cam Brate just asked me the other day, Rob, I have a serious question. Do you ever watch film? And I said, no, I don't. I just run by guys. If I'm feeling good, I'm feeling good. So I don't watch film. I do watch film when the team is showing it. That's what he said. He's like, if he's in the room and they're showing it, he will actually watch the film. But outside of that, he's not trying to do too much in the way of practicing or watching film. Now, in regards to the Manning cast as well, week 2, like I mentioned, Monday Night Football, the audience was down a bit, averaged nearly 14 million, so dropped by a couple of million. But what was of note was the Manning cast. 1.86 million of that nearly 14 was tuned in, nearly 2 million people to Peyton and Eli Manning on ESPN2. That is double their audience from week number 1, even though Monday Night Football in week 1 was a better game, better teams, and a better rating overall. It was the Manning cast that actually grew while everything else pretty much dipped. And not only did they grow, but they doubled. They had about 800,000 viewers in week number 1 and now pushing close to 2 million. They accounted for 16% of the total audience in week 2 compared to 5% in week number 1. And the audience overall was down 12% for from week 2 last year. But yeah, they're clearly getting some attention now. And I think last night with McAfee and Gronkowski, that's just going to continue. And shoot, we'll see how high they go and how much of the share of the broadcast they take.
What would you, and I brought this up. I don't know if, Craig, you saw this. I thought it was either straight to Paul or you guys are always usually in the chat. If you're Steve Levy, and you're the other guys. And I understand that, they're
Riddick
getting paid.
And Greasy.
And those guys actually do a nice job. But you got to don't you have to feel a little bit like, wait a minute. It's like you're competing against ourselves. But that's the way it is. It's the NFL has their different.
But ESPN's been running this stuff out with college
coaches during the national championship.
I mean, it's just different ways to watch the broadcast. And look, if you're ESPN, and you're going to spend this much money in the NFL, you might as well put the game on as many channels as you can because nobody else is coming to you outside of your European channel, which is going to be on soccer. But nobody's really going to be pissed off on Monday Night Football that it's on 3 channels and they can't watch whatever lower tier thing you would be on otherwise.
It used to be on one station. Now it's on multiple stations. And I think what's happened is there was a time when you could not show highlights on Sunday if you were whoever you were, until the other games, the networks were done. Remember, they couldn't. Now it's better for all of us if we all share here in certain ways because we're all trying to feed the same audience at different times.
Yeah, I mean,
and sometimes the same time.
It's nice to have options other than just chocolate and vanilla, and so there's a little strawberry or a little Rocky Road or whatever for you, and you got some options with college football now with the way they do those broadcast and of course the NFL as well. One note from last night's game, Aaron Jones, a native Texan, played his college ball at UTEP. He was a part of the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award as an honorable mention like several times. That's how he first got onto my radar. But it's been amazing to watch him flourish with the Packers. And last night, he obviously flourished 4 touchdowns in that win over the Lions. So the Packers have bounced back. But one thing that was almost a bummer for Aaron Jones was he lost a very important necklace. It was a football-shaped necklace. And this necklace actually carried the ashes of his father. He lost it during one of his end zone celebrations and couldn't find it. But today we find out, and Aaron Jones announced it, I guess, on a radio gig up there in Wisconsin, that the necklace containing his father's ashes has been found. And so that is back in a very small thing. But he posted a picture with the necklace and credited the team trainer for finding it. But it's just a tiny little football pendant, but obviously something with some very special meaning.
If there was any place to lose it, that's where my dad would want me to lose it. I know he's smiling. And then he found it. You're right. I mean, it's a tiny
little pendant. Yeah.
Like you maybe late at night, a light could flash and see some kind of a jewelry. I don't know.
Yeah, that would totally be like in the part of like the little inch between my wall and like the bedpost, and I would never find it until I moved or something, you know. But yeah, to be out in the middle of a football field, in the middle of a game, like kudos to the trainer, whoever found that, because that's obviously a very important token and a great game for him last night, a great win for Green Bay. Elsewhere in the NFL, the Houston Texans have a new starting quarterback. It's only week 3. But Tyrod Taylor has a hamstring injury, so he's unable to play at the moment. So it's officially rookie time, baby. Young Davis Mills from Stanford taking over.
And the number 1 defense in the league as it stands right now, and Phil Snow, Matt Rule's defense with the Panthers. The Texans, I watched a good chunk of that game with the Browns the other day. With Tyrod Taylor, they're an offense that can move the ball a little bit. And they've got guys who are veterans in the league, Brandon Cooks and Danny Amendola and all that. They can move the ball, but they weren't going anywhere. Now, this is scary for him.
Yeah, it's a little bit dicey, but I will say the Texans are way better than anybody expected them to be during the offseason, and they were actually really smart, and you see them signing all these like 1-year deals with veterans, and you're like, what are you doing? And really, it's just like, this is a throwaway year. You know, you don't even know who your quarterback is for the next season. So, yeah, you just sign a bunch of veterans, and that way, would you rather lose with a bunch of veterans who at least give you a chance to win every once in a while, or a bunch of rookies who might not even be on the team next year, you know? So they went that way, and I think it's actually a smart move by David Culley. And, you know, they obviously have to get that quarterback situation figured out, but not a bad move.
By the way, speaking of Aaron Jones for a second, Aaron Rodgers, there was all that stuff going on about him, right? And they looked pathetic, and then the Saints even looked worse against Carolina. Did you see some of the throws he made last night?
Yeah.
There were a couple on a deep, just right down the sideline to, oh, my God, his top receiver. And then there was one to the tight end, Tonga, and I think it was Tonga. I cannot imagine. Peyton Manning did this on that. He was like, it was like, oh, my Lord, the throws he made. He's not done, folks. He's going to be just fine.
I'm just interested what jersey he's wearing next year because it doesn't appear to be Green Bay's.
I don't know. There's some teams out there that have some play. I think Denver makes a whole lot of sense for him because Jerry Jeudy will be back next year. Cortland Sutton is there. They've got playmakers. Denver makes a lot of sense.
There's a lot of teams that could use him. I know another one that's on the East Coast.
Playing well.
But if I was Denver and I wanted to take the next step on offense, and if I was Aaron Rodgers.
What about Washington?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, buddy.
Terry McLaurin. Yeah. I don't listen. Smokey, I want you to be happy. It's a human. I want you and Craig to be happy. But look, I've watched Aaron Rodgers stab me in
my whole point.
Eyeballs.
Yes.
Too many times.
And then twist them out
twice a year.
like an olive in a martini.
The happiest I think the Cowboys have made me in the last few years is when they went up to Lambeau and actually beat him. Yep. And I thought, oh my God, it's possible. Then they played him in the playoffs again, and he kicked their ass. It's not right.
With what they're doing there, and that would be a great fit. There's like 25 great fits. There's only about 5 or 6 that wouldn't be interested. Right.
So I randomly found myself yesterday just going through like ESPN or something. Do you realize the Rangers are still playing?
Yes. Yeah, because they lost 4-3 to the Yankees, and the Yankees are trying to make the playoffs, and right now they're outside.
Yeah.
I don't care at all.
They're
like this is the least
under 500.
This is the least by far the least because I don't care at all. Like I don't care even a little bit.
Yeah.
And if I didn't even remind myself by randomly seeing their like box score or whatever, like I just realized I haven't thought about them in any way, shape, or form for like 2 months now.
Oh, they're terrible.
But they are. The good news is that they are, while eliminated from the playoffs, they are not, Craig, the worst team in the league. That will be. And probably, unless they really hit the skids in the last week and a half here, that'll be either Baltimore or Arizona.
Yeah. Well, good to not be dead last, I suppose. A couple random NBA notes. The Lakers have announced a new jersey ad sponsor. They had been with the e-commerce brand Wish, and the Lakers have now announced a partnership with Bibigo, which is a South Korean food brand. So the Lakers will now be representing a Korean leading brand. But the notable thing is how much money. 5 years, more than $100 million to put these patches on their jerseys. They don't have all the final details, but they've typically sold for average of $7 to $10 million per year. So these will be going for $20 million per year. Bibigo, and that's a South Korean food brand. So when you see that on the Lakers jerseys this year, that's why.
Yeah, Wish, for those people who don't know, is you'll see them online. You'll go, oh, look, I can get something really cheap. Why is it that cheap? Oh, it's because it's a piece of crap.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, so I don't know why they decided to say, like, you know what? What's the average going rate? We'll pay double. I don't know why they decided to do that, but okay, good for the Lakers, I suppose. J.J. Redick has announced his retirement after 15 years in the NBA. He was hosting his podcast today and announced on the Old Man and the Three, which is what his podcast is called, that he was going to be hanging up the shoes after a time with the Pelicans, time with the Mavericks as well. He had been thinking about where he was going to sign next season and instead said he finally had some clarity and that he knew it was time for him to reflect, pause, and get ready for the next phase of life. So J.J. Redick, 15 years in the league, obviously a hell of a career at Duke as well, now calling it a career, and I'm sure we'll still hear plenty about him because of his podcast and what other ventures he may find himself getting into. I know we got to wrap up here. We talked about college football and expansion and what that might look like in the future. Well, one of the big brands out there that's for the taking is the Premier League. The English Premier League is going to be up for bidding, U.S. media rights, and NBC is the one that's had the Premier League media rights, but the EPL believes that it can double or triple its current $150 million a year deal. And so they are expecting to see interest from ESPN, Warner Media, Viacom, CBS, Amazon potentially, as well as NBC, obviously, who is the incumbent. And NBC has had them since 2012 when they got them from Fox Sports and ESPN in a deal. But I just think of the TV landscape and things like that, and I think of the Premier League saying, you know what, rather than just re-signing with who we're with, a la any college football conference saying, well, let's just go with ESPN, they're saying, no, we can triple or double our money. Let's look outside the lines a little bit and see what's out there, and that's what college football conferences need to do as well. So that's how I sort of tie that in.
Jack, what subscription do you have already that you would want it to go to? That way you don't have to buy a new thing.
Sadly, ESPN Plus.
Oh, okay.
And
what if they have the Texas State broadcast crew? You still want to watch Premier League like that?
I would rather just rip my eyeballs out.
Yeah, no. Now, the game that they just played at Kansas was ESPN Plus.
And that was fine.
And the broadcast team was really good. The woman got in trouble probably for go Baylor, go. And Ryan Leaf we had him on yesterday, and he's on his way up the ladder. But it was well done. The videos, all of what I saw, I didn't see many technical mistakes or camera issues at all.
Yeah, and then a final note, on November 17th, I don't know how many people care at this point because even the Cowboys on Hard Knocks didn't seem that big of a deal. This is a note from late last week, but just worth mentioning in a segment like this. There will be an in-season Hard Knocks. The Colts will be starting up the in-season Hard Knocks in November. So I know that's a few days old, but I had that lumped in with last Thursday and never got to it. So undetermined amount of episodes, and we'll get the in-season Hard Knocks with the Indianapolis Colts. So there's a few things that are off the radar.
When we come back, John Martin, he works for ESPN out of Memphis. He also is a contributor to a newspaper there on college football and college sports. They had the nice win against Mississippi State. We'll check in with them. What are they thinking in Memphis? And obviously a team at times will kind of show up on your radar. John McClain, Hall of Fame writer, around 5:30 today. Paul's Top 5 in an hour. Sikkim 365 Radio.
BetUS.com, you've heard me talking about them for a couple of months now. Why BetUS? Well, they've got the biggest retail bonuses to keep their players betting longer, like these promo codes, Sikkim125 and Sikkim200. That's Sikkim125 and Sikkim200. It's Sikkim125 if you want a 125% bonus on cash, or Sikkim200 if you want a 200% bonus on crypto. So if you're going to make some bets this weekend, you haven't done it yet, go to BetUS.com, use our promo codes. They've been serving clients for 25 plus years and prides themselves on being known as America's favorite sports book, and they've got action on every sport across the world, and we can pretty much guarantee that they've got your game. BetUS.com, use promo code Sikkim125 or Sikkim200.
It's Baylor football season, and as always, Berg Colgin Ford supports the green and gold. Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Berg Colgin Ford. It's time for team celebrations and BU touchdowns. Berg Colgin Ford is your home team when it comes to trucks and tailgates. Ford has the perfect truck for you to host a top-ranked tailgate party. Here's to a winning season for our hometown Bears. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Buying made simple at BK Ford. Sic 'em Bears.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist's office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by.
For a limited time, refinance your vehicle and have 90 days with zero payments. Only at Genco FCU. Refinancing lowers your rate and you pay less for your car. You can't pass on rates as low as 1.75% for 48 months. Apply online today.
Annual percentage rate subject to change without notice. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. Go to GencoFCU.org. NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
And this ball will be down inside the 10. Excellent coverage on the punt for the Bulldogs. And then did Austin scoop it up on the return? Calvin Austin will take it all the way the other way.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. This 5 o'clock hour. John Martin, 92.9 ESPN at Memphis, contributes for college sports columns. The Daily Memphian. Memphis 3-0. They've beaten Nicholls State, Arkansas State, and then, of course, the nice win against Mississippi State. They got a showdown this weekend with UT San Antonio and our good friend Jeff Traylor, former high school coach in Texas, who is now with UT San Antonio. John, thanks for your time. An SEC win, a Mississippi State team that they beat. Memphis is not like they just haven't been very good. They've been on the radar for quite some time. What's it like right now with that program?
Well, it's a weird time because, in some ways, the community is kind of reeling from, they feel like they should be with you guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
They feel like they should be part of this conglomerate that is fleeing the AAC and joining, what's left of the Big 12. And is it the Big 12, that everybody is used to being, as dominant? No, it won't be. But it's still going to be preferable to whatever becomes of the American. And so I think in one sense, Memphis feels like, well, we've done just as much as Houston, as Cincinnati, as UCF. We've been in, a New Year's Day bowl. We've invested. Yet here we are left behind. So, there's an element of we're reeling, but also I think you see, with Memphis beating, again, not a world beater by any stretch of the imagination, Mississippi State, but still an SEC team. It's still a team that gets $35 million plus a year from its television contract, which is almost Memphis's entire athletic budget. That means something. And, I think it really is a message to anybody that says Memphis should just focus on basketball. First of all, Memphis has always focused on basketball, and that never stopped at the expense of football, right? That never changed. They made a bad hire in Tubby Smith, but they still paid $3 million a year to, for the privilege of having him here. So the investment to basketball never stopped. It's just they started investing more into football. So, people in Memphis feel really good, but at the same time, there's a real level of frustration and uncertainty on what is to come in this ever-changing and ever-evolving college landscape.
Well, and they've proven that they haven't lost coaches and dipped all that much. So Justin Fuente went to Virginia Tech. Mike Norvell is at Florida State. Ryan Silverfield there now. What has enabled them to navigate losing coaches and still being relevant and at the top of the AAC?
Well, I think, I was talking to somebody about this, over the years, and the thinking was always, you have one coach, at a group of five school, and it's a fluke. And we've seen that, time and time again. But you start putting two in a row together, three in a row together. Now you've gone from a fluke to you've got a real program. And I think what really has allowed Memphis to really keep the momentum. Mike Norvell is a perfect example of a guy that Memphis would not have been able to get 10 years ago, because I think at the time of his hire, he was, I believe, the highest paid offensive coordinator in the entire country there at Arizona State. He could have had his pickup jobs. And, he decided, well, Memphis has some momentum with Justin Fuente. They've been on national television. The indoor facility is coming. They were finishing that up. And so I think it's just the success sort of begets more success. Memphis' perception before Justin Fuente got here was it was a coaching graveyard. If you only came to Memphis as a head coach if you literally had no other option and no other hope of getting a head coaching job, because by and large, whether it was Larry Porter, whether it was Tommy West, you can go on and on. This is not a place where you came and you advanced up the ladder until Justin Fuente. So I think it's really just people being able to see, hey, it can happen. It happened with Justin Fuente going from here to Virginia Tech. Hey, Mike Norvell goes from here to Florida State. And we'll see what happens with Ryan Silverfield. But I really do think it's just seeing that upward mobility is possible. It always takes one. And I think that's what they got with Justin Fuente.
So, John, I've taken notice there's a lot of Texas flavor at quarterback for Memphis. And Grant Gunnell hurt and had to have surgery. So in steps Seth Hennigan, a freshman from Denton, and, both from the state of Texas for that matter. What have you seen from Seth Hennigan, and how do you think that looks, once everybody's healthy and there's, more options at quarterback?
I think it's a reminder that, Texas football is just different, man. He's a true freshman, but he's a true freshman from the state of Texas, and it's almost like you guys' high school football is the majority of D1 college football in a lot of places. And so I think, the difference is with him is that he's a coach's son, and I think that just comes through every time you watch him take a snap. Like he's very poised, he's very collected. Like a lot of times these freshman quarterbacks they don't know what they want to do. You know, they got fast feet. You know, they don't look comfortable. Seth, is going to make mistakes. He's a true freshman quarterback, and it's going to happen. He had a turnover on Saturday. That's okay. It's just, do you look comfortable? Are you making the right decisions? Are you the typical freshman that's going to, try to fight for more yardage and end up fumbling on the play? Or are you going to get down and slide and make the right choice? And so far, Seth has really shown that he's capable of, making the right decisions. Things that you just don't really see from true freshmen, not a redshirt freshman, a true freshman. And I think that's a credit to obviously coming out of Texas, but also being, the coach's son. I don't think Grant will be here next year. It's a weird situation because, when you're talking about a guy that's got Division I experience, high-level Division I experience, he was brought in here to be the starter. And, through a weird sort of sequence of events, he gets hurt. Seth Hennigan in practice sort of is showing what we've seen in games. I cannot see Memphis at this point really going back to him. I know they said, he hasn't had, they may expect him back at some point, but even if he was able to get back health-wise, I don't see how at this point Seth has not done enough to earn this job, not just, for the rest of the season, but really moving forward.
So what is it about the water, no matter where they come from, with Tony Pollard, obviously back to the days of D'Angelo Williams, what is it, the kid, the Washington running back as well?
Antonio Gibson.
Yeah,
yep.
Antonio Gibson has done a good job for them, among others. What is it about running backs in Memphis?
Well, I think it's kind of the same thing we were talking about with the coaches. Like if you watch Memphis football play, what are you going to see the last 4 or 5 years? You're going to see high, up-tempo offense where a lot of guys get a lot of different opportunities. And, Antonio Gibson didn't even play running back, right? He gets drafted, in the third round, and he's certainly become very quickly one of the best running backs in the NFL, certainly one of the most promising. I think it's just the equal opportunity thing that Memphis has going on here. Whether it's Calvin Austin, whether it's Brandon Thomas, you're going to get a chance to show what you have in this offense. Like there's no true number one. I mean, it's going to get spread around. And so I think when you look up and you see Memphis scoring 40 points a game, et cetera, like it becomes like if you're not going to go to the SEC and you're kind of in the region, Memphis makes a lot of sense because you're on TV. Memphis has been to, a New Year's Day Bowl in the last 2 years. They've won the AAC championship. So you're talking about success. And now to go with that, like you mentioned, Tony Pollard, Antonio Gibson, Darrell Henderson Jr. with the Rams. There's NFL success to back that up. So Memphis has a lot going for it, plus the new indoor facility. If you're not an SEC caliber player, and maybe if you're choosing between Vandy, Mississippi State, Memphis, you might say Memphis just because of the success that they've had and the opportunity to win their league. If it comes down to something like that, Memphis can get that kind of a kid.
Is Memphis, if the Big 12 said, okay, we're going to add 2 more schools, would Memphis be ready to present that and go now, you think?
Oh, I think there's no question. I think if the Big 12, I don't know what you guys are operating on, but were you guys not who reported that they were thinking about adding 2 more in the first place?
Yep, we were.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty obvious at this point. Like, who I would hate to be? I would hate to be Mike Oresco right now because you're not getting anybody worth a damn. You're just not. Boise State ain't coming. San Diego State ain't coming. So, okay, you can add UAB. That really doesn't, that doesn't get me going. And then, the rest of it is just like, okay, does Coastal Carolina survive a coaching change? I don't know. I'd be very careful with that. I don't think they necessarily have the facilities or the commitment to make that a long-term wise decision. I think there's an operating sort of understanding around here that whenever Texas and Oklahoma decide to get into the party, that they're going to add 2 again. And, Boise State and Memphis, politically, you have no reason to add SMU. Don't think that would happen. Memphis represents that SEC footprint that the Big 12 would not really otherwise have. And then, Boise State, which has been a power in football for, as long as I can remember. So that's kind of the operating thing here. Look, Memphis to me should have gotten in over, for example, Houston. And I know Houston has the market size, but like my whole thing with Houston is what good is a market size if nobody in that big market cares? Yep. I mean, they don't care about Houston football there. It's just not a thing. You're behind the Texans. You're behind the Rockets. You're behind the Astros. I mean, you're just such a sideshow. Whereas in Memphis, you have such a stronghold. I mean, the Grizzlies play here, but people care way more about the University of Memphis athletic programs than they do the Grizzlies. It's just true. Now, that might change with Ja, but historically, that's always been the case. So, yeah, I to answer that question, Memphis was ready this go around. And I think you saw that sort of reflected in national media. Memphis was considered the biggest loser of expansion. So if and when it does come around again, I would be stunned if Memphis doesn't get in next time.
Well, I'll tell you this, right now, Memphis is still on very much the Big 12's radar, along with Boise State. And there is a feeling that I get based on what maybe Texas and Oklahoma eventually do when it comes to their exit fees, that the Big 12 pretty much is already ready. As soon as that happens, whenever that does happen, you're going to see more expansion within the Big 12. That's just kind of a generic nugget, but I think, John, maybe we'll be having you on talking about Memphis playing Baylor.
Well, so let me I don't know if you guys are short on time, but help me understand why they would do that, because this sort of reminds me a little bit of 2016 where the Big 12 they kind of they push it around, so we're going to maybe expand, and they end up not doing it. Why would they want to split the pie further? Like, help me understand that.
Well, they wouldn't do it just because they want to go to 16 or 14. They're going to do it because they have some information that they are getting back in return that shows that there's a value there. Believe me, they would not want to split the pie just to split the pie. If there's no value, there's no reason to go above 10. There's no reason to have added 4, but they felt like the 4 gave them some footprints in certain areas, and, of course, debatable with what you mentioned about Houston or whatever else. But I think that they're trying to win this turf war. They're not going to go head-to-head with the SEC or Big Ten. They may not be able to go head-to-head with the others either, but I think what they're trying to do is kind of branch out, kind of a spiderweb mentality. And I think that because of what happened and with Bob Bowlesby and the ESPN, as you know, and all that went down, I think that if Texas and Oklahoma, whenever that finally comes down, when they do leave, whatever that is, I think you're going to see them go higher, and I think it's because they think they can, and I think they think there's a value. It may not be $30, $50, $80 million a year, but there's got to be a value there.
Well, that would certainly be welcome news for Memphis, and I think there is no question that Memphis provided. And I didn't, when I talked to my people here, one of the things that they said the Big 12 really wanted to know, and one of the things that they were unsure. Memphis has a little bit of it's not instability, but it's uncertainty because the current president, David Rudd, is leaving. He's outgoing. That was announced about 4 or 5 months ago. And so his last day is May 2022. So I think, and he's been a great president athletically. Like, he's done a lot of good things, and made a lot of, for the most part, good hires. But I think the Big 12 was a little skeptical of whether or not after he leaves, the commitment to athletics, especially in football, would that continue? And in the last couple of weeks, I broke the story, I think 2 weeks ago, President Rudd is now pushing for an on-campus stadium, a new stadium. The Liberty Bowl is a dump. Everybody knows that. Nobody wants to, that was a failed NFL experiment that for some reason the Tigers still have to play in. They don't own the stadium. They can barely get upgrades on it. It's an act of Congress to get anything done to it. They can't stand it. But they're the only tenants, and so it's a political nightmare. But Rudd is trying to keep that conversation going. Like, hey, even after I'm gone, he's setting the tone for the next president needs to continue to get the efforts going for an on-campus stadium. So I think that's a direct response to, because he knows it's going to come around again. Mm-hmm. Keep it fresh. We're still trying in Memphis.
In fact, on the chat room, Matthew M., Memphis should improve their stadium if they want to go into the Big 12. It sucks. And that's not to be degrading. It's just true. It's like what you said.
It's a fact.
Yeah.
It's a fact. Now, I will say this. I don't think the bounce house in Orlando is the Taj Mahal of college football, right? So you can, if you want to pick a part of a school, a city, you can really do that, right? Like, you can find something about all of these schools. These schools are all imperfect in some way. But what Memphis kind of had working against it was at least UCF they had the football success and they had the market size, right? It doesn't really matter at that point what the stadium looks like. It's fine. It's doable. Cincinnati, again, bigger market size. They're currently a top 10 team in the country. Like, the timing worked out for Cincinnati. Houston, as we know, top 10 market in the country. Fertitta's going to throw his weight behind that deal. They just got a new stadium. Even though the success hasn't really been there since Tom Herman, you can overlook that because of the stuff that comes with it. Memphis just was like, it's the timing just was not exactly right because the football success is there, yes, but you're outside the top 50. Your stadium was built in 1965. I was born in 1991. This thing is 26 years older than I am. So it's just it's a real issue for Memphis. And, the reality is that until they figure out a way to get out of it or figure it out, it's going to be a war against them. But they're trying to do that, whether that's in the form of $50 million upgrades or, a new stadium completely. They're on it. And, you can tell Matthew's on it. They understand that. They know it sucks. They're trying to fix it. Whether or not they can probably will play a big part in whether or not they get the invite next time around.
Yep. Thank you, buddy. John, great stuff. Good to have you on. I just had somebody that does a podcast covering West Virginia wanted to know if I can give them your number. Is that good?
Absolutely. Any West Virginia podcast, Baylor podcast, any Big 12 podcast where we can continue to get the good name of Memphis out there for when this comes around. Because look, I want to cover Big 12 matchups, right? I don't want to cover the shell league that, it's going to be, UAB, Old Dominion, North Texas. I can't, as good as North, and I like Ren Baker a lot. I like what he's doing, but it's tough sell. So whatever I got to do to get Memphis in the Big 12, and that includes going on every podcast, I will certainly do that.
Thanks for the time, John Martin, 92.9 Radio in Memphis, contributes to the Daily Memphian. And I've said it. You guys have heard me. Not only we report what we reported about the next level, Chapter 2 of the Big 12, I like Memphis. They have 600-some-thousand people in Memphis, Tennessee.
It's a cool city.
I love where they are. It's in that south, and that doesn't mean you're going to win head up against Alabama, Georgia, whatever, Tennessee, or whoever. Tell me another city other than Fort Worth with TCU that's bigger than 600,000 in the Big 12, other than Austin, and they're leaving.
There's not. Yeah. Yeah, who's bigger than 600,000?
Yeah, it's not Norman, and that doesn't count because they're leaving. It's not Manhattan. I understand Kansas wants Kansas City. It's not Lawrence.
No, that doesn't count.
It's not Lubbock. It's not.
Now, they've got a couple coming in that are.
Cincinnati
absolutely.
And Orlando.
Houston and Orlando, but yeah.
So 600-some thousand people, that's almost twice the size of like the McLennan County footprint, right? But at the same time, I like Memphis. I'd like to see him come in, but that's just me.
I think that they got to be probably 1A. I know Boise State might be an argument for some as well, but they're 1A, 1B in my mind. I don't think there's really another school that you could throw into that mix. If somebody wants to, go right ahead, but don't send me SMU. I'm not on board with that, and I never will be. You got your Texas touch with Houston. You don't need more. You don't need the Dallas market. And thanks to whoever said it earlier, just echoing the way that I feel of just because you play in a city doesn't mean you own that city.
Yeah,
he was just saying that about Houston, right? Yeah. I totally agree with him. That is absolutely the case with Fort Worth and TCU. That is absolutely the case with Dallas and SMU. So I don't see the reasoning for SMU at this point when you've already added Houston.
It's now the case for USC in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I mean, USC and Miami maybe live in a little bit of a different thing because when they're good, that's where you want. It's like going to a great club. Yeah. But outside of that, but you can go I mean, they're not. It's not that. And Georgia is not a big deal in Atlanta. Honestly, they're not as much as they could be.
Here's from the 3-1. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so, if you have any other options out there, I mean, UAB is probably headed the American, and, that's an interesting team just because of their fan base there in Birmingham and how much we know they really pump up the college football numbers there. Now, would that be translating to UAB itself? I don't know that. I just know that they're big college football fans down in Birmingham. But
I think if you're in UAB or in Birmingham, you can open up the Big 12 office East Coast or Eastern Division and just unfurl your flag just to piss them off.
Yeah, but my point just is there's an SMU or a UAB or whatever, but I think it's pretty clear that Memphis and Boise State are the two best options that are remaining. And then after that, I do think there's a bit of a drop off. But We'll hear from some folks.
From the text and then a break, and John McClain from the 310 is a good point. He does forget the presidential factor. He's talking about Houston has a president right now that is on a roll as an institution. She admitted, I love what she said on the day it became official. We had an academic problem, and we went about fixing it, and they are. And, yes, they used to have all sorts of jokes about that, and other schools have had to deal with that as well.
He did bring it up towards the end.
He did, okay. Yeah, he did bring that up.
And when push comes to shove, presidents and ADs are letting people into their club, not just the team. So that was John. I love hearing from him. Good stuff. Very, very, very informative. Memphis has had a winning season in football. 3 10-win seasons or better since 2014. They've not had a losing season since 13.
And I'll tell you what, man, Seth Hennigan, he's had some bumps, but for a true freshman, I mean, he has performed pretty well. And, there's a lot of reasons to like what he's already done and what he could potentially do moving forward. That's interesting about Grant Gunnell. That's, another former highly rated quarterback that's bounced around now. Was at Arizona with Sumlin, if you'll remember, and then transfers to Memphis and then gets hurt or whatever, and is now maybe not even going to play this year for Memphis, and then pull a transfer portal or whatever. But they come into Texas a lot. They get a lot of talent out of this area, and they'd only get more if they were Big 12 members. So I'm sure that's even more ammunition for them to want to join.
All right, so I need. By the way, I got to make sure we could put this. I don't know if we could put that image up because there's a name attached to it. Armstrong. Excuse me. I'm sorry, Jack. That 4-letter word. I'm sorry. That can't. We got a text last night. I don't know if you saw this or not. We got a text from MVBA warrant notice. Our records indicate you have an outstanding fine, and they was directed to a name of a person, and it's from the city of Waco on our text line. Paul, but I can't put it up because the name's on there, right? Just in case it's real.
Maybe this was the old number.
I know.
I don't know.
Yeah, and this is an arrest warrant. You are compelled to appear by arrest.
If this was her tip-off to turn herself in, then, it's not going to get it to her, and that's unfortunate.
I would say the name and tell you you need to kind of take care of this, but I think I'd get sued if I did that.
I've gotten some pretty nerve-wracking texts in my life, but that one.
Warrant. Yeah, turn yourself in. That's a little scary. Yeah.
All right, when we come back, John McClain, Houston Chronicle, Pro Football Hall of Fame writer. A couple of notes. This Thursday, the Texans host Carolina, former Baylor head coach Matt Rule. And guess who's getting some love right now? Former Baylor defensive coordinator. We loved him, man. Phil Snow. That's also next. Sikkim 365 Radio. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. Since 1943, they have been in business, and they continue to grow. Brand new location about to open in Waco. Traded a text or two with Braden Embry, and they just keep going strong. It's what they do. And in business since 1943, ups and downs of the economy. Doesn't matter who's red states, blue states, who's in control of Congress, who the president is. It doesn't matter what happens, even with whatever we're doing around the world. They keep on ticking. It's like a calendar that just flips from one day to the next, to a week to the next, to the month to the next, and then another year to the next. That's what they do. Great customer service and incredible product. Metal, steel, and pipe. Their knowledge and their equipment or what they can do to help you build a metal building is unmatched in the industry. They do that. That's what they do for a living. They can help you with that as well. Pioneer Steel and Pipe can help you even if it's a huge entryway into, let's say you have a really nice, somewhere out in the country or a really beautiful gated neighborhood and you want to do a new entryway. They can help you with some kind of project like that as well. Pipe and steel and metal. That's what they do and have since 1943. Pioneer Steel and Pipe open Saturdays 8 to noon. Locations in Waco and Bryant. PioneerBoys.com.
At Baylor University, students can shine in their own way. Or should we say their own ways? Because there's no limit to the ways Baylor students make the world a brighter place. Whether they're leading a student organization or following a higher calling, getting advice from faculty, or taking part in world-class research, pursuing their dreams, or working toward their dream job, students find their place to shine at Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
It's time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, or get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Order 30-pound sacks of live crawfish by 6 on Wednesday. Pick up on Friday afternoon after 2 or Saturday. Enjoy the weekend. 30-pound sacks of live crawfish available right now for $4.25 a pound. Find all the crawfish boil ingredients you need, including red meat potatoes, sausage, corn cobbettes, and Louisiana boil seasoning. Make your order for live crawfish by Wednesday at 6. Pick up on Friday after 2 or all day Saturday, and enjoy the weekend. Waco Custom Marketplace, your home for fresh baked kolache, cinnamon rolls every day. Butcher shop to cut your steaks the way you want. Fresh seafood, summer sausage, boudin, house cured and smoked bacon, spices, seasoning, soup mixes, and more, and weekly gift boxes for any occasion. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with John McClain of the Houston Chronicle, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
All right, here we go. 365 Sports on YouTube. Also, Sikkim 365 Sports and Radio on many different outlets. And John McClain, Hall of Fame writer. All right, John, you've got Texans and Matt Rule in Carolina. I see where Phil Snow's getting a lot of love with Carolina, what they've done. Your thoughts, first of all, on what Coach Rule's done, a 2-0 start for the Panthers?
Well, their first victory, they played a bad team. Then they get the Saints. And in defense of the Saints, they were missing 8 coaches, including 6 offenses for COVID-19, and the Panthers just killed them. Phil Snow's defense is first in total defense, first against the run, first against the pass. You don't see that very much, and it doesn't matter whose defense it is. So they're coming in here 2-0 on Thursday night. Before the season, I picked the Texans to win, to start 2-1. Tyrod Taylor was playing really well before he pulled a hamstring injury and is now an injured reserve. So they're going with Davis Mills, a rookie who started only 11 games at Stanford, and that is by far the fewest of any of the rookie quarterbacks in the NFL. So I expect Matt Rule to start 3-0 in his second season.
John, looked like, the Texans with Tyrod Taylor were moving the ball that against the Browns. They were in that game. Then as soon as he pulled his hamstring, they were out. Is this team better than maybe we all thought they were going to be if Taylor would be the quarterback going forward?
Well, they were, and even with Davis Mills, he threw his first touchdown pass to pull within 24-21 in the fourth quarter. And then it was 31-21, and he put them down to the Cleveland 18. The idea was to kick a field goal, pull within 7, and have an onside kick. Instead, the kicker, Joey Sly, missed a 41-yard field goal, and that strategy was over. But even in a 10-point loss, they were 12.5-point underdogs, second biggest spread of the week. So they earned a lot of respect. And if they could somehow pull off an upset here, they would earn even more respect locally and nationally. I'm writing a column tomorrow about the legend of T.J. Yates. 10 years ago, the third-string, fifth-round pick was playing behind Matt Schaub, Matt Leinart, and the Texans had never had a winning record. They never won a division, and Schaub went down. Leinart started in Jacksonville. He went out in the first quarter. Yates came in, led him to a victory, and then he had his first start in Atlanta that beat Atlanta, and then they won the division for the first time when he threw a winning touchdown pass at Cincinnati, and then they won a playoff game. And he didn't have to be great, but he had a lot more talent around him than Davis Mills does. But it's an interesting comparison because it's the same situation. So you look, the first 2 picks overall, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, they've been terrible, which is not surprising because they play on bad teams. And Justin Fields has come off the bench twice. He's been awful. The only one that's done well is Mac Jones in New England, and he just beat the Jets, who are horrendous. Zach Wilson had as many completions as interceptions, 4. So it's hard for a rookie quarterback. Everybody loves to get Russell Wilson in the 3rd round, Dak Prescott in the 4th, or Tom Brady in the 6th, but those guys are few and far between.
So, John, obviously, David Culley inherited one thing, and it's turned into another. The Deshaun Watson wild card alone was not exactly what he signed up for. But and there's a lot of work to be done still. But what are your impressions of David Culley through these first few games?
Well, I can't tell you, Craig, how much I respect him. You guys would, too. He's one of the all-time great guys I've met and had the pleasure of covering in 45 years of covering the NFL. Everybody pulls for him. He treats everybody with respect. I was listening to his news conference today, and 3 people asked him the same question. And Bill O'Brien would have pointed that out, and Culley just did his best to answer him. And he's been a refreshing breath of air, I'll tell you. And the people here are pulling for him. And the fact that he's gotten off to a good start, he had one bonehead call in the Cleveland game that fortunately for him didn't backfire, because they intercepted a pass, and people are critical of him on talk shows. I told one of them, I said, let's see, were you as good when you started on your talk show as you are now? Did you ever make any mistakes? And they're like, Porky Pig, blah, 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 blah. Well, of course, none of us are ever as good when we do something for the first time. The key, of course, is to get better. And it's probably, Craig, going to take 2 or 3 years before we get an accurate measurement of Culley as a coach, because they need some more talent.
Well, and John, they're not. I would assume that Nick Casario's vision for Culley isn't, because of the way they have 1-year deals on 40 of these guys on the roster and all the different things, that it's not that he better win now or he's out. I mean, they've got to have a longer term plan with their head coach than just, take the lumps with the rest of the 1-year guys.
Next year, they'll have all their draft choices, plus they hope to have multiple picks, high picks for Deshaun Watson. That's when they would get younger. So probably 2022, you'd start to get a barometer of if they're going to be one of these teams that can recover, or are they want to be one of these teams that's been bad for a long time. Remember, they've only had one bad season in a row. That was last year. The way the fans talk down here, you'd think they were the Bengals or the Jaguars or Lions, one of those teams that's been every year. But I would expect this team to get somewhere in the 8-8 range around 2023.
All right. So the NFL's gone to this Monday night broadcast, and Craig brought this up on a segment he does at 4:45 with Peyton Manning and Eli Manning. John, I don't know how much you've been able to watch it, if at all. It is brilliant. How much have you, if you've caught the Manning brothers on Monday Night Football?
Well, I've watched it. Now, I would rather it be just Peyton and Eli. I don't need guests.
Yeah.
And if they're going to bring a guest, bring in their daddy or their brother. I want to see those two guys going at it. And to me, the guests take away from it. Even though Russell Wilson was pretty good when he was there, Eli didn't talk much. Ray Lewis, to me, brings nothing to a broadcast. Pat McAfee, best thing I've seen him do was dive into the Brazos River. So I just want to see it be Peyton and Eli, if it were, and they'll work out kinks in this thing. Everything's not perfect right away, but people are fascinated. I want them to get technical. It's not for the casual fan. It's for the serious fan. So I think it's a great idea. I'd love to see it with other sports too.
John, what do you think of all the complaints this early about the NFL's taunting rules?
Craig, I feel bad for the officials. It's not them. It's the NFL, the nincompoops on Park Avenue, trying to legislate too much into the game. There's a taunting rule if a guy's spiking the ball at your foot, or you're down and he's screaming at you, or he holds the ball out as he's running for a touchdown. Those things are obvious. But I saw several this weekend, including one with the Texans, in which a tight end, Jordan Akins, caught a pass, 17-yard gain. He got up, he spun the ball, not in the direction of the Browns. He didn't look at the Browns. He didn't look at the Browns bench. They immediately threw a flag and cost him a 17-yard gain. I think they'll cut stars slack, and I think they're not going to be taking away touchdowns. If a running back's flipping into the end zone, isn't that kind of showing up the defense? Look what I can do. They're not going to do anything to Lamar Jackson.
John, what do you think about your 3-0 Baylor Bears?
I am really fired up about the Iowa State game. I knew they were going to cream Kansas. Poor old Texas Southern. I can't imagine why they filled the team. And that Texas State game was closer than it should have been, but it's interesting the way they're running the ball as well as they are. Really good story. I think is an AP story, or maybe it's ESPN, about the Big 12, which used to throw it all over the place, is now becoming a running conference more than a throwing conference. It's almost throwback football. So I'd love to see them beat Iowa State, and I hope they have a sellout crowd. I'll watch it every minute.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's last I saw, and I did talk to somebody in the ticket office today, there was like 1,800 tickets. Now, those are all on the top rim on, I think, the northeast side of the stadium. But this ought to be fun. We've talked about this before. This is one that there's no reason not to be there unless you just can't possibly be there. So,
well, I can't imagine why students wouldn't want to go to that game, every student on that campus, because of the stadium, the setting. If they were to beat Iowa State, and they were supposed to be the second best team to Oklahoma coming into the season, if they were to beat Iowa State, they're going to be ranked. They're going to get a lot of respect, not just in Texas, but around the country.
Thank you, John.
Sick on.
John McClain. We can never let that go and let him go until he says that. Couple of Baylor notes that come out in the athletic communications pieces. Baylor is 6 for 7 on fourth downs. Okay. And they early on, that shows you have confidence in your team, no matter who you're playing.
I think they've run on most of them, too.
Mm-hmm. The 3-0 for the 8th time in 11 years. Well, they used to play a non-conference schedule, kind of like what they've had here, except KU is a conference game, which they should have been 3-0, but they weren't last year. And, of course, the schedule was different. And they surely weren't 3-0 when they lost to Liberty and UT San Antonio. Back in 2017. They're now 8-1 in Big 12 openers since 2013. 12-14 all overall. So they were 4-13. Of course, they were terrible during most of that time as well. They have held each opponent under 300 yards of total offense. And then we could always say, well, they should. But I asked a coach this one time, what do you say when somebody, but they should win 54-0? He goes, well, sometimes that's true. But we never take anybody for granted. But Texas Southern was terrible. Obviously, the Texas State game was a little bit dicey at times, but they dominated. They're doing what they're supposed to do. Now, I love this game Saturday. Don't you guys? You will know. They beat Iowa State. I don't care how it happens. If they do it and they look good doing it, then who knows? And then, you didn't worry about Stillwater. But I kind of like it. If they get beat 30-7, well, that kind of sets everybody back down to earth.
If they play a competitive game, and especially if they win, but if they are right there toe-to-toe with Iowa State, that's going to kind of – I'm starting to lean towards this and that there's no one in the Big 12. Now, I think Oklahoma could maybe turn it on at any time, but there's no one in the Big 12 who's really shown me to be a world beater so far this year. And Oklahoma, the only one to me that has the potential to do it. So, I think this league is going to be very – very competitive in the middle of it, and you're not going to see anybody kind of run away with this thing, or like a clear 1-2. I don't think.
I'll disagree slightly on the playing close thing because there's been bad Baylor teams that have played Iowa State really close lately, including last year. They played them very close, and that was a terrible football team, and that was in Ames. So if they're close in the final score, to me it's more about, okay, why were they close? Was it because the offense was still running the football well and because Gary Bohannon looked good and the defense was good? Or were they close because Iowa State, had 3 turnovers and, they were self-inflicted and it wasn't really so much what Baylor was doing? Like, does Brock Purdy from last week show up or does Brock Purdy from the first 2 weeks show up? Mm-hmm. Does Brock Purdy from last week show up or does the Brock Purdy that got benched against Iowa show up? You know what I mean? So, they could play them close, but I think the style in which they do it is going to be really telling. And I do think they can win this game. I do think home field advantage is going to be incredibly important for any fans debating on whether to go. And I do think that we're going to see a knockdown drag-out. I know Aranda is expecting a very physical game because of what Iowa State does, and I think Iowa State's probably expecting a very physical game because of what Baylor does. So I think it's going to be, not necessarily smash mouth, but there's going to be some mouths getting smashed on Saturday. And who emerges from that, I think is going to be somebody that you have to look at in that top tier of the Big 12 as that starts to emerge.
I don't know if this means anything, but it did a couple of times when we saw Khalil Keith one time running 50 yards downfield in a run against maybe it was Texas Southern. And then we saw what Tyquan Thornton was doing, running alongside his teammate, leading the way in R.J. Sneed, another wide receiver. That's a sign of a team that's kind of locked in. Against, who they should beat and beat badly, but that's kind of a sign right there. I like it, at least so far. And that means also when things don't go well, and there will be a time, and it could be Saturday, we'll find out a little bit more about how much they're all in as well, and I think they are.
Yeah, they only faced a little bit of attrition in that Texas State game, and that got super dicey, but that was a game they had no business being close in, and they just never drove the stake in. We saw them do just that when they had their second scenario where it was a little bit dicey, and that was just having only a touchdown lead against KU, where clearly it probably should have been 21-0 at worst at halftime, and instead it was 14-7 because of what Baylor was doing. Entirely not because of Kansas, but because of what Baylor was doing. So if they play at a high level, I think they can hang neck and neck with Iowa State, and I think we're, like I said, in for a great game. And I just so happened while we were doing that interview, happened to just peek over at your laptop, and I saw somebody addressing me about SMU and why SMU might be somebody that the Big 12 looks at. I get why SMU would be looked at. I get why SMU would be talked about. I would just prefer, me personally, I don't think about SMU outside of these 3 hours every day. Me personally, I don't think they're that great of a draw. I don't think that they're bringing that much to the table of a new Big 12. I get that they are loaded to the gills with money, but I get that they might be a little bit of a sleeping giant in a way. But all I've heard for SMU is, oh, well, Dallas, spare me. They did not bring the Dallas market. They do not bring the Dallas market. They don't. And they might bring some of it, but they're not bringing as much as like 5 other teams who aren't in Dallas are bringing, you know? So, or what other Big 12 teams are bringing. So that's where I am. I'm not anti-SMU. I'm just compare them to Memphis or someone like that. And, yeah, I'd rather see the team not from Texas be in the Big 12. But I get why they're mentioned.
And that's even if they beat TCU this weekend.
Yeah.
And they could. Thanks for John McClain at his time. When we come back, Paul Catalina's Top 5.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfection pizza. Like loads of premium toppings like crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, and fresh sliced veggies pizza. That's Marco's Pizza. Visit marcos.com and make any moment better. And with 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Escape the mundane with the responsive power and exhilarating agility of a new Cadillac from Richard Carr Cadillac. Smile behind the wheel again in the supercharged sophistication of a CT4 or CT5 sedan, or the sporty and spacious XT4, XT5, or XT6 lineup of SUVs. Starting at only $33,395, the Cadillac of your dreams is waiting now at an affordable price at Richard Carr. Test drive from the expansive selection at Richard Carr Cadillac, or let us bring a test drive to you. Go to richardcarcadillac.com to schedule a test drive today.
It's football season. Sports bettors and BetUS.com has your NFL and college football live betting lines up for their 27th year. Why BetUS.com? Well, they're the 3-decade leader, and you can join now for a 125% bonus on promo code SICK'EM125 with cash, or a 200% bonus on crypto with SICK'EM200. The 3-decade leader with action on every sport across the world. We can pretty much guarantee that they've got your game at BetUS.com. Use promo code SICK'EM125 or SICK'EM200.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Brought to you by Champions Salon and Barber. 2 locations in Waco, one in Woodway, one right downtown, just a stone's throw from where we are in this building right now. All right, top 5 teams you don't want to play. So far, the first 3 weeks, these are teams that, one of them might have been kind of on the fringe of the national radar, but I'm telling you right now, you don't want to play these teams. Number 5, Arkansas. Sam Pittman's got them playing tough. Kendall Briles' offense is installed. Now, Arkansas might not wind up being world beaters, and beating Texas might not wind up being that big of a deal come the end of the year. But I'm telling you right now, I don't want to play this team. I don't want to play them. I don't want them on my schedule. They're the kind of team that can mess up my season.
Yeah, they're good, and Pittman's the real deal. Like what I've seen from Arkansas so far this season, I think that they've definitely taken a step forward. Now, much like we've discussed with Baylor, we're going to learn a lot starting now. Mm-hmm. Starting now. That's why this weekend's so big. Is it's not just the Big 12, but it's a lot of other conferences that are getting up for big games as well. And so we know A&M's pretty good. And despite the quarterback injury, and now we get to see Arkansas versus A&M and get a much better measuring stick. But, yeah, I definitely have Arkansas as like one of the teams to watch so far through these first 3 weeks.
If they can show success on offense, which they have a lot of weapons, but the thing that they beat Texas with was I didn't get to watch a lot of the game. They beat them up on defense too. So if they have a little bit of that could be a 27-20 type game or even less than that. I don't know.
Yeah. Number 4, BYU.
No question.
And there is nobody happier that BYU is going to the Big 12 than the teams they're playing in the Pac-12 right now. And I believe they have one more Pac-12 game left on the schedule in which they could go 4-0, which, not many teams are going to go 4-0 on the Pac-12 at any stretch this year. So I'm trying to find that FBS Independence. Where are you? There you are. But yeah, they have. I mean, look, they haven't missed a beat, losing. I mean, maybe a little bit, but Zach Wilson's not there anymore, and not a big deal. They've beaten Arizona, Utah, and Arizona State in the first 3 weeks, and they still have Washington State, a team that they should beat on the schedule. And right now, if you look at the rest of their schedule, USF, that should be a win. Utah State, that should be a win.
I know it should be, but Coach Anderson's got a nice little start for them right now.
Yeah. Boise State is going to be that's in Provo. That's going to be a doozy. Baylor should be a doozy. Washington State should be a win. Virginia probably could be a win. Idaho State, Georgia Southern, and USC. Oh no, they have 2 more. USC. So yeah, they could wind up going 5-0 in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I love that. Don't you love that schedule? Where they play, who they play. That's one of the great things about being independent. That's one of the things. Notre Dame's playing Wisconsin this week in Chicago, which is one of the things that we were told back when we had Pete Sampson on about being independent.
Yeah, I mean, if they go 5-0 in Pac-12, then I think they should get an honorary trophy. I do. I would even go so far as to troll if I was BYU and put up a banner in the stadium of 2021 Pac-12 champs. I mean, why not if you go 5-0 and you beat a lot of their named teams? But no, yeah, they're tough, hard-nosed. I thought losing Zach Wilson as well as some pretty important assistant coaches to Baylor would be, more of would hamper them a bit more returning this season. But they've started really well, and that game with them and Baylor coming up in about 4 weeks from now, that's totally changed in my head of what that could potentially look like. I already thought it would be a tough game, but now I'm looking at it as a much tougher game. I was pretty clear in chalking that up as a win for Baylor before the season started, and now I'm not as confident.
No. Number 3, Kansas State. Chris Klieman has got his team playing exactly how he wants them. They're tough on defense. They play hard-nosed on offense. They're not spectacular. They're not, lighting it up all over the place. But Will Howard came in last week, played a steady game. No Skylar Thompson. If they can play without him like they did last week, that's a team that, again, will be a season ruiner.
Yeah, I think they're going to still be pretty good even without Skylar Thompson. To what extent, I don't know. But Chris Klieman's the real deal. He was a perfect hire for Kansas State, I think, and it's taken them some time. I mean, but last year they were on a roll, and then, Skylar Thompson gets hurt, and then they proceeded to enter a losing streak to close out the year. But, no, they're a very fundamentally sound, solid physical football program. Got some great weapons and guys like Deuce Vaughn. I think they're going to be a handful even without Skylar Thompson at the helm.
Yeah. Number 2, Ole Miss. That offense is humming. I think the only thing that will honestly derail Ole Miss is Lane Kiffin. I mean, I think his ego gets in the way sometimes. But they're a good team on offense. They're I mean, they don't have to be all that good on defense because their offense is so good. They got one of the best offenses in the country right now, Matt Corral, or Coral's a Coral, whatever it is. But he's the Heisman frontrunner as it stands right now, leads the nation in total offense, I believe, and they've been fantastic. I do not want to see this offense no matter who I am.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it for years at Baylor. So, I mean, yeah, it's very good, and they're hitting on all cylinders right now. Lane Kiffin's getting a lot of the credit, but Jeff Lebby deserves just as much credit because, I mean, without him and without Briles, this offense doesn't look the same as it looks right now. What I will be interested to see is when ESPN pundits start to lower his draft stock because he's a system quarterback who plays in a offensive system. And it's not so much his talent level because I remember hearing that about Bryce Petty. I remember hearing that about pretty much every Baylor quarterback. I don't know what the talk was when RG3 was around, but that became a knock as time went on that the players on offense didn't translate well to the pros because the receivers didn't have to learn a full route tree. The blocking schemes are different. The quarterbacks don't have to know nearly as much about what's going on. So it's just interesting to hear all the NFL buzz for him. But no doubt he's a great player, but the system is – it's so fun when it's clicking, and it's clicking right now for Ole Miss.
Yeah. Number 1, Penn State already won on the road at Wisconsin and then welcomed Auburn and overcame a really bad officiating call at home to win that game. They've proven that it doesn't matter who comes into their place or who's in front of them. I think this is a team that will challenge Ohio State for the Big Ten. I don't want to see Penn State. And I don't know if they're quite good enough to be in the CFP conversation, but they are good enough to be on the fringes of it right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I don't. Not many times I want to play Penn State, you know. But they of all those teams you have on that list,
but they bounced back from just
0-5 or whatever they were last year. They just was It's weird that's going to be a record on James Franklin's resume that they were 0-5, and of course it's going to be an asterisk with a lot of people. But a lot of teams that were good played well and played. Hell, Alabama won the national title.
Yeah, that game pulled in great ratings, as did Alabama and Florida, as you might imagine. And Penn State, yeah, absolutely right there at the top of the list, if not the top of the list of favorites to watch in the Big Ten right now, especially with Ohio State looking a little bit shaky. But, no, they've got a good thing going. Obviously, that USC talk hasn't created any distractions for James Franklin, at least in the last week or so, because they went out and played that way on Saturday. So that didn't serve as too much of a detraction for them, which is good. And if it maintains that way for the remainder of the year, which I would expect it to, they're going to be heavily in that mix.
A lot of you on the chat room, we appreciate you. Couldn't get to all of it, but here's from Andrew. All of Brigham Young's difficult games are coming up at home except USC and Baylor. And that Baylor game remains to be seen, and by then we'll see. We'll know because of who they play between now and then.
I saw after the win on Saturday, a couple media folks, and I don't recall who, but they were like, man, BYU, look at this schedule. They might go undefeated. And I think, let's just hold our horses a little bit here because there's still some pretty big games coming up. There's definitely reasons to be excited, but undefeated talk already I think is a bit premature.
Most teams will not go undefeated. Even the best ones will have pimples.
Well, guess what? Alabama and Georgia, one of those two won't either, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because they have to eventually possibly play each other. If they don't, that means they had lost another game somewhere in between or maybe two. Jack McKenzie, thank you very much. Hayden Bumpus was here. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. Thanks to all of our guests on many issues, college football, the NFL, and Sikkim 365 Radio. See you tomorrow at 3 Central.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications